didn't want to be a half-blood. If you think you might be one of us, my advice is turn away while you still can.
The opening monologue of the book was basically a massive fourth wall joke, with Percy telling the reader to put the book down if anything feels familiar to them. This set the tone for the rest of the story. The fact that they dropped that angle and made it more straightforward should immediately be raising some red flags.
I'm 12 years old. Am I a troubled kid?
Okay, for some reason the show decided to remove some crucial context from one of the first lines of narration. In the book, it actually makes sense for Percy to be posing this question, since it came immediately after he said he attended a school for troubled kids.
That's me, back in 2nd grade.
Percy in this show is depicted with Walker Scobell's natural blonde hair and blue eyes, while in the book he had black hair and green eyes like Poseidon.
I could have sworn I saw something. When you say you saw something like that, you wind up in this guy's office.
Percy was not branded a troubled kid for having an overactive imagination. He was branded a troubled kid because he kept getting blamed for accidents that nearly got his classmates killed, like a school bus getting blasted with a Revolutionary War cannon, or his class falling into an aquarium shark tank. Mythomagic is a real card game in the Riordanverse, but Percy never played it himself. In fact, he doesn't seem to have even known it existed until The Titan's Curse, the 3rd book in the series. And I suppose I should address the elephant in the room. We can all see it, no use pretending it isn't there. Yeah, Grover looks about the same age as Percy, when he should look a couple years older with acne and peach fuzz. The show only gives us an establishing shot of the school bus driving to the museum, but in the book it was the setting for the entire first scene, where Percy's friendship with Grover, rivalry with Nancy, and poor standing with the school staff are all established.
The gods.
Okay, let's get to the real elephant in the room. Mr. Brunner is supposed to have brown hair, not gray.
Now, on your worksheets.
There was no written portion of the museum tour in the book. It was basically just a lecture. This seems to be here to set up a flashback. Okay, I suppose that if the movie got a send-off for visualizing Percy's dyslexia, the show should get one too.
Perseus. That's me.
This flashback is entirely original to the show and has no basis in the books. It seems to be here to illustrate the significance of Percy's name and set up some stuff for the Medusa episode later on.
Not everyone who looks like a hero is a hero. And not everyone who looks like a monster is a monster.
Okay, you could say that about literally any other Greek hero and it would fit with the themes of the books. But Perseus? Perseus was basically a paragon of virtue in the books. Even when he killed Medusa, he didn't have a choice and hated that he had to do it.
And at night, his mother would whisper in his ear, "Hold fast, Perseus."
This line has no basis in the book or in mythology. I guess the writers thought Percy Jackson needed a set of arc words.
Percy?
Mom?
This is not how Percy ended up embarrassing himself at the museum. He embarrassed himself by telling Nancy to shut up in the middle of Mr. Brunner's lecture.
When you're ready to hear what the gods have in store for you, they'll tell you.
Chiron, you know you're supposed to be in hiding right now, right? Maybe try something with more plausible deniability, like, "What you learn from me is vitally important. I expect you to treat it as such." Also, Mr. Brunner used Percy's outburst as an opportunity to review the story of Kronos and the Titan War with him, setting up both the dynamic of the Big Three and the overarching plot of the series. The show completely skips over that.
And I believe you'll be needing this.
Mr. Brunner didn't give Riptide to Percy during his lesson. He tossed the sword to him while he was being attacked, and demanded her back immediately after. Percy doesn't get to keep her until he sets off on his quest. It doesn't even make sense for him to give her to him now, because he doesn't know for sure that Percy is the one he's been waiting for, or that he's in any danger at the moment. Hey, where's all the storm clouds? The book took the time to note that freak weather events were ramping up pretty much right from the start. Would have been nice to see something on the horizon, even if they didn't call attention to it.
No, if there's one thing I know about bullies, it is that you should never, ever stand up to them.
Grover's reasoning for stopping Percy from hurting Nancy was much more pragmatic in the book. There, it had been established that Percy was already on probation, and Grover just didn't want him getting expelled.
Oops.
Really, Nancy? Plain cheese? The Nancy Boba Fett I know throws peanut butter and ketchup sandwiches. That's a suitably disgusting food choice.
Percy?
Percy did not do this. He actually stayed sat by the fountain while the water grabbed her. I honestly don't know why they changed that. Not only does it make for a worse visual, but it makes the "I didn't touch Nancy" line feel more hollow because he was clearly going to do it either way. Riptide wasn't a sneakoscope. The only advance warning Percy ever got for a monster attack was Grover's nose. This never even happens again in the later episodes. Why did they bother showing it here?
It was only a matter of time before we found you.
Mrs. Dodds did not attack Percy in broad daylight. She pulled him away from the tour group and led him to a secluded area of the museum. It was actually a pretty tense sequence. She even teleports around like a slasher villain. I guess this is meant to set up the mist, but I thought the book already did a good enough job of that just by having everyone forget Mrs. Dodds existed. Also, Mrs. Dodds didn't communicate with Percy telepathically like this. She just spoke to him normally. The kindly ones were not reptilian. They looked more like shriveled old bats. This is not how Percy killed Mrs. Dodds. Percy was taken by surprise when Riptide turned into a sword, but the blow that killed Mrs. Dodds was a very deliberate slash.
Is he dead?
Percy did not pass out after the museum fight. He just walked out of the museum wondering what the hell he just saw.
The truth can be so very hard to determine. But in this case, the truth seems very hard to deny.
While it does make for a nice opportunity for a creator cameo, this scene never happened. As far as everyone at Yancey was concerned, Percy was properly punished for pushing Nancy into the fountain by Mrs. Kerr, the replacement math teacher. Percy's eventual expulsion was basically just because he stopped giving a damn and didn't hold back from mouthing off at his teachers for the rest of the year.
Mr. Underwood, do you have anything to add?
Percy had told me earlier in the day that he wanted to get back at Nancy for all she'd done to us.
Grover?
And he isn't being truthful about what happened at the fountain.
Grover?
Excuse me.
Grover would never throw Percy under the bus like this. In fact, when Mrs. Dodds came after him for pushing Nancy, Grover immediately tried to take the blame himself. But I guess we gotta have forced drama between the best friends. Percy was not expelled from Yancey Academy on the spot. He was allowed to complete the 6th grade, he just wasn't allowed back for the start of 7th. As a result of this change, we completely miss out on Percy eavesdropping on Grover and Mr. Brunner outside his office, and all the foreshadowing in that scene.
I didn't touch Nancy.
I know you didn't. At least, I know you think you didn't. I suspect you are special. So much more so than you know.
Just stop.
This is not how Percy's last conversation with Mr. Brunner went. Mr. Brunner's attempts to reassure Percy after a disastrous final exam genuinely backfire because Percy misinterprets Mr. Brunner's words about him finding where he belongs as an admission that he never had faith in him to begin with. It's pretty heartbreaking. I would have liked to have seen it unfold on screen. Maybe they just thought it was a bit out of character for Chiron? I don't know.
This is my ride. I'm going home.
Percy did not ride home on a busted-up pickup truck. He took the Greyhound bus. Also, Grover was supposed to accompany him home, but I guess the fact that Percy's leaving in the middle of the term puts the kibosh on that, too.
There's nothing wrong with falling in this building. Have you considered eating more fruit?
Hey, I eat plenty of fruit. Have you considered eating more fruit?
Oh. Hello, Percy.
Hey, Eddie. Sorry about that.
I'm walking out. You're walking in.
Gabe and Eddie were actually friends in the book. Don't get me wrong, Eddie did seem annoyed at how Gabe treated Percy, but he still came over for poker night.
Welcome home, genius.
Why does Gabe have a thick head of hair? He's supposed to be almost completely bald. Also, I guess Standards and Practices vetoed Gabe's cigars, huh? At least he gets to keep his beers.
My mom is the only one employed here.
Gabe was employed in the book. He was the manager of an electronics store in Queens. Granted, he never actually went to work, but he still had a job. Somehow.
What does it look like I'm doing right now?
Losing at imaginary
Gabe didn't play poker online. He played at a table with his real-life friends. Again, one of which was Eddie. Sally was away at work when Percy got home, not doing whatever this is. Couldn't they have at least had her wear the Sweet on America apron so we can see what she actually does for a living?
I'm really sorry. I tried this time. You know how hard I've been trying, but this time it really wasn't my fault. It really wasn't my fault.
Percy actually made an effort to stay upbeat when talking to his mother. They avoided the topic of his expulsion completely and tried to focus on the good stuff that happened during the school year.
And that I had enough time to pick up your welcome home gift.
Just a bag of hard candy, huh? In the book, Sally brought home a whole variety pack of blue candies, including jelly beans, taffy, and sour strings. Also, slight spoiler, but the show never explains the blue food throughout the season. Granted, the explanation seems to change from book to book, with it starting out as a power move against Gabe, and eventually just evolving into it's their favorite color. Still, it wouldn't hurt to give the audience some explanation for the gimmick.
Something happened to me.
Percy didn't tell Sally anything about what happened with Mrs. Dodds. He thought it would sound stupid.
Since when are you going to Montauk?
I called to reserve the place as soon as I got off the phone with Yancey.
The Montauk trip was not spur of the moment in the book. Sally needed to clear it with Gabe beforehand because he was in charge of the family's money.
Why exactly am I okay with this?
Because on my way home on Sunday, I'm going to stop at D'Angelo's and pick up sandwiches in time for tip-off. But if you make this miserable, I'm going to go anyway, and then I'm going to eat my sandwich.
This is not how Sally won Gabe over on the idea of the Montauk trip. Again, he controlled the money, he had the power to stop her if he wanted to, and she knew that trying to argue with him would... well, it would not end well for her. She bribed him with the promise of 7-layer dip, and by offering to take the money for the trip out of her clothes budget.
And then I'm going to eat my sandwich and yours while I listen to the game on the radio.
You know I hate watching the Knicks alone.
So do I!
Hang on a minute. Did the show just say that Sally enjoys doing anything with Gabe at all? I'm pretty sure she couldn't f***ing stand the guy and only put up with him for Percy's sake. Percy's first dream wasn't of talking to a man with a lantern on the beach. It was of a white horse fighting with a golden eagle. There was a voice goading them to fight, but it came from beneath the earth, not from a figure on the beach. Also, it's a little early for this dream to be happening. Percy had already spent a day in Montauk before he had his first dream. The weather was pretty clear when Percy and Sally arrived at the cabin. Clear enough for them to build a campfire, at least. It wasn't until right before the Minotaur attack that the weather took a turn for the worse.
Then we were at the museum and...
You saw something. What did she say to you?
How did you know it was a she?
Sally had no idea about the museum attack until Grover showed up and forced Percy to tell her. She seemed pretty shocked at the reveal.
Do you know why we come to this cabin every year?
Because it's near the septic tank, so it's cheap. Mom, how did you know about that thing I saw?
We come to this place every year because this is the place I met your father.
Percy already knew this. Sally had told him the story of how she met his father multiple times. It was practically a yearly tradition. Of course, she left out the part about him being a god, but she told him the story.
A long time ago, I met a man here on the beach. He was wise and brave and kind and noble. From the moment I first saw him, I knew that I had never met a man like him before.
Well, that's the vaguest story I've ever heard. In the book, Sally told Percy that his father was a rich man who had a secret affair with her, then sailed away for business and was never seen again.
Because he wasn't a man at all. He was a god.
Sally never told Percy that his father was a god. She was afraid that if he found out, he would have to go to camp, which she didn't want.
You fell in love with God? Like Jesus?
Okay, this is a pretty good joke, and fairly book accurate too. Percy does, in fact, confuse the first reference to the gods for a reference to God, with a capital G.
The stories that I have told you about Greek gods and heroes and monsters, they are real.
Percy's never said to have learned any Greek mythology from his mother. He learned pretty much everything from Chiron and Annabeth.
Wait, Mom.
I asked to have the night. You said we could all leave in the morning.
Sorry, I'm early, but I didn't have any choice.
Wait, Sally and Grover planned this? In the book, Grover had to track Percy all the way from the Greyhound station, and Sally had no idea what was going on when he showed up.
I feel very good about how we're doing so far.
Grover!
What?
Grover, why is there half a goat in your pants?
Oh, it's...
Percy initially thought Grover's legs were donkey legs. This led to a funny little exchange where it turns out that's a horrible insult to satyrs.
What are you? I'm a satyr.
At this point in the story, Grover's horns are... Hang on, let me brighten up the screen here, I can't see shit. There we go. Anyway, as I was saying, at this point in the story, Grover's horns are supposed to be small enough that his hair hides them most of the time. It's not until he hits his growth spurt that he starts needing a hat to hide them full time.
If I hadn't gotten you kicked out of school, you'd have never survived the night.
You know, this might have made sense if Grover had tried to accompany Percy home like he did in the book. But instead, he basically left Percy unprotected for almost an entire day.
Well, none of us saw Dodds coming.
Grover knew that Mrs. Dodds was a monster well before the museum incident. He almost certainly didn't know she was a kindly one, but he did at one point warn Percy that she was dangerous, and again, tried to stop her from dragging him away at the museum.
The mist. It's the veil that hides the magical world from the human world.
It's a little early for this, isn't it? Grover does mention mist on the car ride, but the full explanation is saved for when Percy goes off on his quest.
The sooner we get you to camp, the better off you're... You told him about camp, right?
Not yet, no.
Sally actually did tell Percy about camp in the book. At least, the fact that there was a camp that his father wanted him to go to, but that she was afraid he would never come home from.
Camp is a sanctuary for half-bloods.
Jesus, why are we front-loading all of this exposition? Some of this stuff can wait, and did in the book.
Is that the Minotaur?
Percy didn't see the Minotaur until after the car crashed. And even then, he didn't recognize it immediately. He thought it was just some guy wearing a blanket over his head.
Boys? Yeah, I'm actually 24.
Grover was 28 in the book, which would make him the equivalent of a 14-year-old human. Seems odd at first, but then you realize that 4 years later, when the later books take place, Grover would be 32, which would make him equivalent to a 16-year-old, just like Percy. I guess they just didn't want to deal with all that now, but they better have a plan for how to deal with it going forward. None of this happened in the book. The car crash was the result of a lightning strike, not getting rammed by the Minotaur. Grover was actually knocked unconscious by the car running off the road. Percy had to help him out of the car, not vice versa. Anyone else getting a sense of deja vu?
Grover, I am entrusting you to protect my son, my only child.
Don't worry, Mrs. Jackson. Percy will be totally safe at camp.
Swear it.
What's happening?
Yeah, I'm with you, Percy. Sally was nowhere near this dramatic about leaving Percy with Grover. She basically just explained that the Minotaur was only after Percy and not her, and that she wouldn't be able to cross the boundary regardless.
You're gonna need to be brave now. Remember what I taught you. Remember the stories I told you, especially the stories they will tell you.
No way.
Mom, I'm not leaving you.
Perseus!
Percy actually won this argument in the book. He and Sally ended up carrying Grover up the hill together, at least until the Minotaur caught up with them.
You are not broken. You are singular.
Again, more dramatic speeches that weren't in the book. Did the marketing department really need so many lines for the trailer? The Minotaur is supposed to be completely human-like apart from his head and chest. He did not have a full fur coat or bull-like legs. Also, he's supposed to have a nose ring. It was Percy who used a red raincoat as a matador flag, not Sally. This whole splitting up to confuse the Sen approach was not used in the book. The only reason they were split up was because they dove in different directions to evade the Minotaur's charge. And that's another thing. Sally was supposed to teach Percy how to dodge a charging Minotaur. Pretty useful skill if you ask me, no idea why they cut it. Sally did not disintegrate in the Minotaur's hand. She disappeared in a burst of golden light. As I said, Percy gave Riptide back to Mr. Brunner after killing Mrs. Dodds. He didn't have her for the fight with the Minotaur. Seriously, it's really bugging me how familiar this is starting to feel. Percy didn't just climb onto the Minotaur. He jumped onto the Minotaur mid-charge. You know, when I first saw this scene, I thought, finally they got the Minotaur horn scene right. But then I took a closer look and saw this score mark here from when Percy hit it with a sword earlier, and I realized, oh, he could only break it off because he weakened it with the sword. Which still undersells Percy's strength, since again, he didn't have Riptide when he fought the Minotaur. Percy stabbed the Minotaur in the chest with the horn, not in the head. Percy did not pass out immediately after defeating the Minotaur. He dragged Grover's unconscious body all the way to the big house before collapsing from... Okay, I've definitely said all this before. What is going on here?
He's waking. Everyone, give him some space, please.
I guess this is supposed to be the show's version of what Percy sees when he collapses on the big house porch. But in that scene, it was just Annabeth and Chiron, not an entire crowd of campers. Plot-wise, this episode feels like Mandela Effect Lightning Thief. So much of the book is here, but just a little bit off, which makes it weird to watch as a fan of the book. As for tone, I found it way too broody and melodramatic. The Lightning Thief wasn't exactly a goofball comedy, but Percy's narration had a clear sense of humor that kept things from getting too heavy. While this episode has moments like that, it seems way more interested in giving us a ton of angsty moments and bombastic speeches. On top of that, something about this episode makes it feel sluggish compared to the book. At first I was inclined to say it was the lack of action, but then I realized that the first 4 chapters were pretty light on action too. I think the real issue is that the book handles the downtime a lot better, with more organic dialogue and funny narration to keep the reader engaged. Overall, as a pilot, this shows a lot of promise, but still leaves a lot of room for improvement. The changes are subtle, but taken all together make it feel just off enough from the book that I'm just not quite feeling it. How is there a thunderstorm happening at Camp Half-Blood? Bad weather is supposed to always pass around the camp, unless the gods specifically choose otherwise.
You drool when you sleep.
Okay, this is kinda creepy. In the book, Annabeth was in Percy's infirmary room because she was his nurse, and we see her acting in that capacity by spoon-feeding him ambrosia. Here, she's just watching him sleep. Percy actually drifted in and out of consciousness several times in the book. One time he saw Argus, the 100-eyed giant from mythology who works as the camp's head of security. Apparently there were plans to include him, but they were scrapped for budgetary reasons. Also, when Percy finally woke up, he wasn't actually in the infirmary. He was on the porch of the big house. The Minotaur horn is described as being black and white, like the horns of some real-life bulls. Also, it's supposed to have some blood on the tip from where it stabbed the Minotaur. Standards and practices strikes again, I guess.
I know this isn't easy, but I want to talk about it.
I don't.
Whoa, Percy! Just getting out of bed after fighting the damn Minotaur? In the book, Percy still needed another glass of nectar between waking up and actually being able to stand.
Where are you going?
It was so important I get here because my father's a god. So I'm gonna go find him.
Percy in the book never once thought he might find his father at camp. In fact, he didn't even know he was a half-blood until he toured the entire camp. While sleeping on the job isn't exactly out of character for him, Mr. D was introduced playing Pinochle with Chiron.
I'm Percy Jackson. I'm new here.
Peter Johnson is here!
While Mr. D calling Percy Peter Johnson is a running gag throughout the book series, during their first interaction he actually called him by his full name, Perseus Jackson. This really freaks Percy out, as he doesn't normally tell people his full name.
You really don't want to start with this guy.
He's starting with me.
Percy, the D is for Dionysus.
Nobody told Percy that Mr. D was Dionysus. Percy had to piece that together for himself from context clues.
Excuse me, Your Highness?
Percy actually had a hard time believing that Mr. D was a god, even after realizing who he was. That is, until his eyes started burning with purple flames, and Percy started seeing visions of the messed up things Dionysus had done to those who disrespected him in the past.
I think my dad may be around here somewhere. I don't know how to ask him. I don't even know his name. But I think I should see him. Can you help me?
I think I can, son.
Dionysus never claimed to be Percy's father. In fact, I'm pretty sure that doing so would have been a breach of some divine law somewhere. Chiron was still in his wheelchair when he introduced Percy to camp, probably to make the transition easier for him. In fact, him getting out of his wheelchair and revealing his horse body was a pretty dramatic reveal. Also, Chiron's horse body is supposed to have white fur. Fun fact, actor Glyn Turman was actually riding a real horse for his scenes in centaur form, and apparently chose his own horse based on his decades of experience with horseback riding, which he also teaches for children at a real-life summer camp. It may be inaccurate, but there's a damn good story behind it. This is 100% a sin by technicality only. As for the brace you can see on his leg in this shot here, well, I actually debated for a while about whether to count it or not. Technically speaking, this is book accurate. Wrath of the Triple Goddess does reveal that Chiron wears a leg brace ever since getting shot with one of Heracles' poison arrows, which was a real event in mythology, so kudos there. But that book came out almost a year after the show premiered, and basically has Percy say, he's had that brace the whole time, I just never noticed until recently. So it's clearly a case of the book retconning in a detail from the show. So I guess I should put it on the counter, especially since I already spent so much time talking about it.
Before we get to know each other, there's something very important I want you to do for me. In the galley, there is a bottle of 1985 Chateau Haut-Brion. Will you go fetch that for me?
Mr. D is not your father. Mr. D knows that Zeus has forbidden him from consuming alcohol, and that demigods are able to do things for gods that gods are forbidden to do for themselves. Mr. D was taking advantage of that.
While this is a nice way to establish the idea of the gods getting demigods to do what they can't, it's entirely made up for the show.
Walk with me, and we'll start again. Grover, please, give us a moment.
Chiron didn't need to tell Grover to stay behind while he took Percy on a tour of the camp. He'd already been called away by Mr. D to a meeting to discuss his performance as a keeper. Also, are we really skipping over the Pinochle game? I guess it's not particularly cinematic, but still, that's at least half a chapter, and the half the chapter was named after. I play Pinochle with a horse.
This doesn't feel right.
What, success? You got the boy to camp alive.
Wait, what? Grover's main motivation in the book is that he didn't complete his mission, since Percy ended up dragging him over the property line. Because of this, he has to go on a quest with Percy, or else he'll never be able to get his searcher's license. You're not seriously gonna cut out the main character arc for one of the lead characters, are you? Also, I'd just like to point out that Grover and a soda can were in a scene together, and at no point did Grover eat it like he did in the book. Apparently someone thought showing that would inspire kids to try it at home and hurt themselves, which I'd say is ridiculous, but the only ridiculous thing about it is that they're absolutely right.
I lost your pen sword thingy. Hopefully that wasn't your only one.
Check your pocket. Unless you surrender it, it will always find its way back to you.
Once again, this is kind of sequence breaking. In the book, Chiron explains this to Percy before he sets off on the quest, at the same time he gives him Riptide to keep. I guess this makes sense given the new sequence of events, but I'm still gonna count it as an inaccuracy. Also, whether or not Percy surrenders her doesn't seem to matter in the books. The one time he does, when Percy gives her to Terminus and the Son of Neptune, it takes some level of active magic to prevent her from returning to his pocket. Also, the show never elaborates on any other facts about the sword beyond this point. Not the fact that she was a gift from Poseidon, not that she has any sort of troubled past, not even that her name is Riptide. Like, how are you going to use the Vance Joy song in the trailer and not actually mention the name Riptide?
12 cabins. The 12 Olympian gods.
Okay, this is the best look we're gonna get at the cabins as a collective, so let's just break it down here. The Demeter cabin did not have a windmill on it, it had a rooftop garden. The Hera cabin is supposed to be bright white, with pomegranates and flowers growing around the columns and peacocks carved into the walls. The Zeus cabin looking similar to Hera's is accurate, but it's supposed to be bulkier and have bronze doors with holographic lightning bolts. And again, too dingy looking. The Poseidon cabin is supposed to be shorter and wider than the Zeus cabin, and have walls made of rough grey sea stone studded with shells. The Ares cabin is supposed to have a sloppy red paint job, with barbed wire on the roof and a stuffed boar head over the door. The Apollo cabin is supposed to be clad in gold. The Hephaestus cabin is supposed to look like a factory, with a brick exterior and smokestacks on the roof. And lastly, the cabins were not arranged in a simple circle. They were arranged in a horseshoe shape, with Zeus and Hera at the apex. Also, no Hestia tending the hearth? How dare you? Hestia is Bestia. Also, she's pretty integral to the final book, so it's weird that they didn't bother setting her up at all.
Each cabin is home to the children that God has claimed.
Great, which one am I?
You haven't been claimed, Percy. Your father might claim you tomorrow. It might be next week. It might be...
Never.
In the book, this conversation came after the tour of camp, and Percy had it with Annabeth. This is actually how Percy found out that he's a demigod.
Everyone!
Wait a minute.
Everyone! This is Percy Jackson. I trust you will see to whatever he needs.
Hey Chiron, would you care to tell the Hermes kids whether or not he's undetermined? They need to know whether or not to groan about more unclaimed kids. Then again, considering that they aren't bowing to Chiron here like they should, I guess it all evens out. Courtesy-wise anyway, both are still sins. Percy was supposed to trip on the threshold when he first stepped into the Hermes cabin. Gotta make a good first impression on your new cabin mates. Percy actually had nothing to claim floor space with in the book. Luke had to steal some supplies for him. Maybe that's where this sleeping bag came from, but the fact that it's never revealed, I'm counting as a sin. After all, that detail might have been foreshadowing.
Look, if you want to give me a hard time, just do it tomorrow. I can't do any more today.
Heard what happened to you on the hill, and I just wanted to say I'm really sorry.
While this is endearing in its own way, Luke in the book took more of a keep your chin up, everything will work out approach to comforting Percy, at least to begin with. Also, Luke is supposed to have short-cropped sandy hair. And that scar is way too faint. It's supposed to be thick and white. Also, Percy's tour of the camp didn't end here. Chiron left to teach an archery class, but Annabeth took him on a tour of the rest of camp. As a result of this change, we miss out on seeing the arts and crafts room and the climbing wall. Grover's meeting with the Cloven Elders took place while Percy was on his tour of the camp, not anywhere near dinner time. Also, if you look in the background, you can see campers bringing trays of food to the dining pavilion. In the book, the dining pavilion had table service courtesy of the wood nymphs. Percy's first dinner at camp was a scene unto itself. Kind of weird that they'd skip over that.
You've been picking at them again.
According to the credits, this Dryad character is named Helena. Dryads do appear in the Riordanverse, naturally, but none named Helena appeared in the books. Except for Wrath of the Triple Goddess, where Grover mentions having an aunt by that name, but again, not counting that.
Sooner or later, you're gonna have to choose.
I'll admit, this poor performance could just be an isolated incident, but in the interest of nitpickery, I will point out that Chiron seems to beat Mr. D at cards with some regularity.
It's Sally Jackson. I've never seen a Minotaur crush a human to death, but I assumed that they'd get really squishy, but she evaporated, like a monster would.
I find it really ironic that this is such a major plot point when the book explicitly denies it being a thing. To quote directly, "The bullman roared in agony. He flailed, clawing at his chest, then began to disintegrate. Not like my mother, in a flash of golden light, but like crumbling sand, blown away in chunks by the wind, the same way Mrs. Dodds had burst apart."
So I went to the Cloven Council and...
Wait, that's what you were meeting with the Cloven Elders for? Not to discuss your searcher's license? Keep changing things like this, and I'm gonna start thinking you just don't care about Grover's story at all.
Hades himself can actually reach out and...
Yes, we know.
But you haven't told Percy anything yet?
No. No one is gonna tell him anything.
Nobody tried to keep it a secret from Percy that Sally was alive in the underworld. In fact, as far as I can tell, only a few people even knew for sure that she was. They don't even give any explanation for why Percy shouldn't know other than, the gods will be angry. What even is the point of this besides more forced drama?
I left you here. Left you with nothing.
The second dream sequence in the book comes later, after Percy gets claimed. Also, it took place in LA, where Percy sees Zeus and Poseidon wrestling with each other.
We all have them, you know. Intense, recurring nightmares, that's normal here. And the daydreams, and ADHD, and dyslexia. Demigods just process reality differently.
This is all the detail we get about the dyslexia and ADHD in the show, but the book explains it much more thoroughly. Dyslexia is explained by demigods being wired for reading Greek, while ADHD is explained by them having natural battle instincts. There's even a joke about monsters hiding as teachers and pushing for Adderall prescriptions to suppress demigod instincts. Being of a different class of neurodivergence, I'm going to leave it up to the ADHD and dyslexic communities whether this omission is a positive or negative change.
Why do they get to bring us here to just ignore some of us?
Spend too much time trying to figure out why the gods do whatever it is they do. You'll drive yourself crazy.
When Percy asked this question in the book, he got a much more direct answer. Annabeth tells him, "The gods are busy. They have a lot of kids and they don't always care about us, so they ignore us." This wouldn't even be too out of character for Luke to say, so I have no clue why they wouldn't just do that.
The sooner you stop worrying about that, the sooner you can enjoy what this place actually does offer. Glory. Demigods have always fought for glory. They used to call it kleos. It's like this stuff that attaches itself to your name, makes it bigger, scarier, more important.
This actually is a real thing in Hellenistic religious traditions. It comes up quite a bit in Homer's works. This is a great touch for mythology fans, but unfortunately, kleos doesn't explicitly come up at any point in The Lightning Thief, nor any of the other books, so on the sing counter it goes.
And they think twice about messing with you.
Hey!
Oh, hey! Knock it off, Clarice.
So, this is Clarice, huh? Yeah, she looks pretty different from her appearance in the books. She's supposed to have stringy brown hair and be muscular enough that Percy guesses her camp shirt must be a 3XL. Even if the actor's appearance wasn't a priority in the casting process, couldn't they have at least put her in her trademark camo jacket? On the subject of costuming, is it just me, or do way too many campers have 5 beads on their necklace? Annabeth says outright that her and Luke being at camp for 5 years is strange, with even most of the college-age counselors not having been there that long.
Why don't they mess with you?
They know better.
Luke's the strongest swordsman at camp.
Hey, Chris Rodriguez is here! Technically, his first appearance wasn't until the second book, The Sea of Monsters, but Percy does recall having seen him around at camp during his first year, so yeah, including him as a minor character here does make all the sense.
A good source of glory are feats of skill, so we gotta figure out what you're good at.
The sequence of Percy trying different skills was not in pursuit of glory. It was just meant to determine who his godly parent was.
I wouldn't.
In the book, Chiron was the camp's archery teacher. This demigod in a wheelchair, credited as Sarah, is an entirely original character. Huh, that was short. Percy tried a number of other activities in the book. He wrestled with Clarice, foot raced some dryads, proved to be a fairly proficient canoeer, and did something with the strawberry vines it's never clarified. They basically ruled out all the major gods apart from the big three. Also, at the risk of spoiling later episodes, I think it would have been better to show Percy sword training with Luke now rather than in flashbacks later on, since that would help to foreshadow later events in this episode and keep it from feeling like an ass pull later on.
Is there a Greek god of disappointment?
Oasis, but she's a goddess.
I wouldn't dismiss that idea so soon. There are demigods born from same-gender relationships, like Kayla Knowles, daughter of Apollo and Darren Knowles. Hell, this is probably just a writing goof, but in The Lightning Thief, Grover briefly speculates that Percy might be a child of Nemesis, even though she's also a goddess.
We're gonna find the thing that you're good at. I know it.
In the book, after all of Percy's failures, Luke speculated that he might actually be a son of Hermes after all, a jack of all trades, master of none.
Our turn.
My turn for what?
Why are there only 3 Hermes kids at this table? All the campers in a cabin are supposed to sit at a single table, and the Hermes cabin is supposed to be so crowded that Percy can't even get his whole butt on the bench.
Burnt offerings. The gods like the smell, so it gets their attention before you say a prayer.
The burnt offerings weren't part of a prayer ritual, it was just an offering. You're free to say a prayer if you want, but that's not the purpose of the ritual. Hey, wait a second, shouldn't Percy have already learned all this by now? This is at least his second day at camp. We saw campers gathering for dinner earlier in the episode. Has he taken all of his meals in his cabin up until now? Is that even allowed?
Hi, Mom.
While ancestor veneration does seem to have been practiced in ancient Greece, Percy never prayed to his mother. The closest we get is when he toasts a goblet of blue cherry coke to her with dinner and silently vows to bring her back from the dead somehow. Oh, that reminds me. They never showed the magical goblets at the dining pavilion, which can summon any beverage the drinker asks for. Non-alcoholic, of course.
Hey, guys. Can't sleep, huh?
The bathroom incident took place a good bit earlier in the book. It actually interrupted Percy's tour of the camp.
Tell me you made it all up about the Minotaur, and I'll let you go.
I didn't make anything up.
Clarice never accused Percy of lying about killing the Minotaur. She was incredulous, to be sure, but she mostly just laughed it off. The bathroom incident was basically just her trying to haze Percy. Only one toilet erupts in the show, but in the book, every fixture in the bathroom blasted Clarice.
I'm Annabeth.
Okay, no more joking around. It's time to really address that thing you probably want me to talk about. Even going strictly by the text, Annabeth is one of the few unambiguously white characters in the book, with tan skin and curly blonde hair. She also had gray eyes, a distinctive trait of Athena kids. Yeah, this is about as far off as you can get from that description. Now, don't make me tap the sign. Anyway, Percy met Annabeth much earlier in the book. In fact, he met her on his first day, at the pinochle table with Mr. D and Chiron. Then she took Percy on a tour of the camp, and tutored him in ancient Greek. All of these scenes fleshed her out quite a bit before Capture the Flag. Also, Annabeth seems to have just been standing there watching from a distance while Percy got swirlied, which is not what she did in the book. She actually tried to stop it, but Clarice pushed her aside. This also robs us of seeing these two characters banter with each other and the origin of Annabeth's Wise Girl nickname. In fact, her trying to stop it led to her getting doused alongside Clarice and her siblings. Yet she's looking pretty dry here.
Well, I've been waiting to see if something like this would happen. So I know if you can help me.
Help you do what?
Win Capture the Flag.
While Annabeth did think Percy might be the one at first, she dismissed the idea as soon as she realized what a doofus he was. That is, until the bathroom incident.
Annabeth's the head counselor of the Athena Academy.
Okay, it's not explicitly stated when Annabeth became head counselor, but seeing as there's a line in The Lightning Thief about all the counselors being college-aged, I'm pretty sure it was sometime after that.
She's led our team to 3 straight wins, but
F***ing what? The Ares kids were the reigning champions of Capture the Flag when Percy arrived at camp. The blue team were the plucky underdogs with something to prove. That's why Annabeth needed Percy's help to win.
Before camp, I was on the road. Me and a forbidden kid I met along the way. Her name is Thalia.
Spoiler alert! In the book, Thalia's story is initially set up as a standalone thing, recounted from a distance similar to the classical myths. The fact that she was a friend of Luke and Annabeth's was only revealed late in the book. I thought that was a really powerful plot twist, but I guess we're just not bothering with that.
One day, we find this little girl hiding in an alley, Annabeth. We were worried about taking her in, exposing her to all that danger. Then we saw her fight.
Nope, Luke and Thalia were both ready to take Annabeth in as soon as they met her. After all, the alternative was to leave a 7-year-old child on her own, with no home, with only a hammer to fend off monsters.
Chiron's been promising her for years. One day, a demigod would arrive who was fated to go on a quest that even Chiron couldn't prevent.
Luke alludes to the fact that Chiron has been refusing quests, but never goes in depth as to why, even though he would know better than anyone else. In the book, Luke himself admits that he was the last camper to go on a quest, and that it went so badly for him that Chiron has never allowed a quest since. This is also how he got his scar, and a major factor of his motivation.
Any magical items you may possess are permitted as well.
Percy did not use Riptide and Capture the Flag. He used a standard issue sword from the camp armory. Then again, he almost certainly would have used her if he'd had her by that point, since the regular swords weren't super well balanced. But still...
Alright, we have 20 minutes before the second conch and game 1. You know what you're doing?
Yes, ma'am.
I think now is a good time to note that Annabeth had a pretty obvious crush on Luke in the book, and turned into a blushing mess every time she was near him. I can see 2 possible reasons for them dropping this. 1, because they felt that was a dumb cliche, or 2, because they want to distance themselves from any romantic implications between the two as much as possible, to avoid some of the squickier elements of the later books. Both make sense, but I still don't see this as a strictly necessary change on its own.
Listen, I get it. Okay, you're better at this than me. But I need this to go well today. So if you're gonna expect me to know how to do something I don't know how to do, and I end up falling flat on my face, like, I can't really have that right now.
You still don't get where you fit into all this, do you?
In the show, Annabeth just kind of leads Percy to a random spot and refuses to elaborate. In the book, he had a clear assignment: stay by the creek and keep the Red soldiers from crossing it into Blue territory. She had an ulterior motive for it, but she at least gave him a pretense and didn't just leave him in the lurch.
Game on.
The first time Percy saw Annabeth use the hat came at the end of Capture the Flag. I thought that added to the surprise of her keeping an eye on him the whole time.
No maiming, it's like the one rule.
In the book, Percy says this after one of the Ares kids actually makes him bleed. It's more of a scolding than a pleading, even if it is kind of pathetic either way.
Are you feeling up to that yet?
Guess it's a no.
Percy did not attempt to run from his fight with Clarice. He stood his ground for the whole fight. This seems to be an excuse to get them to the water, which just makes me wonder why they bothered moving the fight away from the water to begin with. Gonna be honest, this part is a bit of an adaptational show. In the book, the Ares kids pretty much had Percy down for the count for a moment, and had already started celebrating. But as it turned out, they'd knocked Percy into the creek, which gave him enough of a strength boost to win the fight for as long as he stayed in the water. Then, after the fight is over, he immediately loses that strength the moment he leaves the water. Here, Percy holds his own for pretty much the whole fight, maybe steps into the water for a bit, then gets a few good hits in even after stepping back onto the beach. Percy actually got one last hit in on Clarice while she was yelling about her broken spear. You know, just for good measure.
Were you here the whole time?
Yes?
You were here the whole time and you didn't help me?
Yes.
Why?
In the book, Annabeth admits that she was planning to jump in and help, but even she was surprised by how well he did.
I'm sorry.
The fact that the water healed Percy was as much of a surprise for Annabeth as it was for everyone else. She practically had a panic attack when she realized what was going on. Some might say this change fixes the fact that she never pieces together the obvious clues, but I always interpreted that as her being in denial on account of the Athena-Poseidon rivalry. Also, Scene does not contain a hellhound. Seriously, that's the best your VFX department could manage? The trident sign in the book was described as a spinning green hologram, not a static blue PNG.
You have been claimed by Poseidon. As a forbidden child of the sea god, you are singular amongst demigods. And your father's only hope to prevent the outbreak of war.
The show kind of blends Percy getting claimed with Percy being offered his quest into a single cliffhanger ending. In the book, Percy getting claimed was a chapter-ending cliffhanger unto itself, and an entire additional chapter is dedicated to Percy getting offered a quest. Because of this change, we miss out on seeing Percy try to live at camp as a forbidden kid, and a lot of detail gets stripped away from the quest offer to save time, which I think was unneeded. Just end the episode where the chapter ended, and start the next episode with the quest offer so we can have more breathing room.
For months now, Zeus and Poseidon have been locked in a dispute over the Master Bolt, the symbol of Zeus's authority.
While this is true and a big sore point for Zeus, there's also the pretty pressing concern that the Master Bolt is the most powerful weapon in the universe, outclassing even the strongest atomic bombs by a wide margin. Yeah, not the kind of thing you want some random thief getting their hands on, especially if you're like Poseidon and have Cyclopes at your command that could potentially reverse engineer it and make copies. Also, I see sunshine on those hills, even though in the book, Zeus sent a storm to Camp Half-Blood for harboring the alleged lightning thief. This provided additional motivation for why Percy should go on the quest.
An ultimatum has been given to him by Zeus, that if he doesn't return the bolt by the summer solstice in 1 week...
1 week? In the book, Percy had 10 days to retrieve the Master Bolt, and even then he barely made the deadline. How is he supposed to manage it with 3 fewer days?
There is a third brother who has always deeply resented them both.
Sadie's.
Yes.
The bolt is with Hades.
Chiron actually didn't tell Percy that his quest would be to the underworld until after he got the prophecy. For some reason, he thought that detail might scare Percy away.
The quest is always undertaken by 3.
Great. Good luck finding those guys, because it ain't gonna be me.
Percy never refused to go on the quest for the Master Bolt. He may not have cared about preventing the war, but he knew better than to say as much. Besides, his only other option was to let Mr. D turn him into a dolphin.
You are his son.
I am Sally Jackson's son.
There was a moment vaguely similar to this in the book, when Percy first learns the cabins are assigned by parent. Because this happens before he learns that he and all the other campers are half-bloods, he assumes they want to know about his mother. It wasn't some act of defiance, he was genuinely confused.
The fate of the world hangs in the balance. You will accept this quest.
I won't.
Mr. D actually didn't want Percy going on the quest. He'd rather just incinerate Percy to appease Zeus, or at least turn him into a dolphin. Also, Mr. D was only there for the beginning of the scene. After that, he had to leave for an emergency meeting on Olympus.
I'm sorry, sir, but I have news.
Grover?
Sally Jackson is alive. Your mother was stolen. By Hades.
When do we leave?
Percy didn't know his mom was alive until he was already halfway across the country. Sure, he was planning to bring her back from the underworld pretty much as soon as he found out that's where he was going, but whether or not she was alive down there didn't matter, because that's where the dead go anyway. One thing I did like about this episode is the atmosphere. While the details might have been off, watching this episode did feel like a day at Camp Half-Blood. A lot of that is down to the location, which secondary sources say was in Minity Bay, Vancouver. But also, I will give the set designers credit for capturing the whole Greek city meets American sleepaway camp vibe of the camp from the books. I know some have complained that the episode doesn't have a lot going on, and is mostly just exposition up until the capture the flag sequence. And I will agree, it can be a bit of a drag trying to watch this from start to finish. But honestly, I think some of that's to be expected given the source material, so I won't give it too hard a time for that adaptation-wise. These were the world-building chapters, after all. The main issues I have with this episode are related to the characters of Annabeth and Clarice. The show seems to be playing Annabeth up as this stoic badass, which just doesn't fit with her characterization in the book at all. These early chapters alone gave her a ton of character-building moments, virtually none of which ended up in this series. Which is kind of unfortunate. Leah is a great actress, and I really wish she'd been given more material to work with. As for Clarice, while she is fun to watch in her own right, I don't know if she quite captures Clarice's specific brand of awful. In the book, she was a lot more loud and obnoxious, more of a dumb brute. The show portrays her as rude, spiteful, arrogant, and cruel, but she seems a lot more focused in how she expresses that. If I had to summarize, I'd say that TV Clarice is a snake, while book Clarice is more of a rampaging bull. And yeah, the dynamic between Annabeth and Clarice also gets completely lost in the shuffle. The show only seems to care about building up the rivalry between Clarice and Percy, completely ignoring the rivalry that the two girls already had. In fact, I don't believe they have any actual scenes together throughout the show, which is a huge letdown. Compared with the first episode, I think the vibes are way more on point with this one, but at the same time it deviates from the plot in more ways. So it's a bit hard to say which I thought was better or worse. But I think I'm going to at least say that I enjoyed watching this one more. Though I'm still having a hard time shaking the feeling that this just isn't the Percy Jackson I grew up with. Wait, is that Percy's Minotaur horn? He never put that in the attic, he hung it up in his cabin. Or is that just another Minotaur horn that another camper stashed up there? That would make sense, since the Minotaur does appear to regrow its horn when it regenerates. But Percy never mentions finding one in the attic, which you would expect him to if he did. Either way, it's a sin. Would have been so much less confusing to just put up a Hydra head. What is the Oracle doing in an armchair? Her tripod stool is practically her symbol of power, passed down through generations since the original Oracle at Delphi.
Hi, I'm Percy. It's nice to meet you. I was told a quest isn't a quest until you've said so.
The Oracle was the one to initiate the conversation. None of this dialogue was in the book.
You seem busy. I'll come back.
The excuse Percy came up with in the book was way funnier. He said, or at least wanted to say, "Wrong door, just looking for the bathroom." Here we see just Gabe giving the prophecy, but in the book, Percy saw Gabe's entire poker group playing around one of the tables, with each player delivering another line. But I guess we can't do that here because someone thought Gabe shouldn't have a real poker group.
Really?
You shall go west.
The Oracle speaks with Gabe's voice here, but in the book, all of the poker players spoke with the Oracle's own raspy voice. Also, we're just skipping over the Oracle's iconic introduction. Lame.
And you shall find what was stolen and see it safely returned.
The Oracle has confirmed what we expected.
Okay, looks like we're doing some non-linear storytelling. I guess that's cool, and definitely not something the book format would have allowed. But I don't know, I think it messes with the vibe of the Oracle scene.
I have selected our most compelling candidates, from which you will choose 2 to join you on this quest.
There was no ceremony for Percy to choose his companions on the Bolt quest. In fact, no quest ever had a ceremony like this.
And ensure that we succeed.
Annabeth.
Percy did not choose Annabeth for the quest. She volunteered, and he just accepted that.
This thing, Zeus's Master Bolt, we need to get it back, right? And it's gonna be hard to get, yes? And if the mission required someone to push me down a flight of stairs for it to succeed, you'd want someone who won't hesitate when they do it.
Also, that isn't quite the reason she came along. To use her own words, if you're going to save the world, I'm the best person to keep you from messing up. Okay, Grover may have said Mr. D might as well have transferred him to stable cleaning duty when he suspended judgment on his keeper's assignment, but he was never actually assigned to stable cleaning duty.
So, who'd you choose to go with you?
You.
Percy was quite hesitant to invite Grover on the Bolt quest. He wanted to bring him along, but also didn't want to put him in danger. Of course, Grover was brave enough to accept anyway, even if he was obviously freaked out at the idea.
I'm gonna pack the best snacks.
Speaking of which, Grover is obviously not freaked out at the idea here, even though he really should be. Satyrs don't do well underground. He'd rather look for the Master Bolt in a nice place, like Maine.
How much money did they give you?
$200 in cash and a bag of these. I think they're Canadian, maybe?
Golden drachmas are supposed to be a fair bit bigger than that. Percy describes them as being the size of Girl Scout cookies. Also, these drachmas appear to have animal symbols on the reverse, like the ancient silver drachmas used by mortals. But the modern golden drachmas seen in the book have images of the Empire State Building instead.
I brought you this.
Here we see Luke bringing Percy the winged shoes while he's still packing his things for the quest. In the book, Luke basically had to stop Percy right as he was about to leave camp to give them to him. Also, where's the emergency nectar and ambrosia? That's a pretty glaring oversight considering those are the only medical supplies they'll have on a quest that could likely kill them. This is a sweet moment, but it never happened in the book. As I said in the last video, the fact that Annabeth was friends with Thalia was a plot twist, so including a moment like this would kind of undermine that. At this point, the tree was just a rallying point.
She's really gonna miss that tree, huh?
When Annabeth first arrived here with Thalia and Luke, they were being chased by monsters.
The fact that Thalia got turned into a tree was one of the first things Percy learned about her back when he was still unclaimed. Frankly, it doesn't make that much sense that they would wait this long to establish that. Thalia's pine is probably the most distinctive landmark at camp. Why are they only telling him its origins as he's leaving?
Agents of Hades. Sisters.
Furies.
And hellhounds. Why do they always forget the hellhounds? Did Standards and Practices veto that too?
Mrs. Dodds?
Yes. One was our algebra teacher, Electo.
Mrs. Dodds is actually not identified as Electo until the 5th book. Prior to that, she was only known to be one of the three Furies.
She fought valiantly, and she met a hero's fate.
She met a Pinecone's fate.
Look, I know a lot of people like this line because it's one of the only Percy-style quips in the show, but do you want to know what Percy's reaction to learning what happened to Thalia was in the book? Here are a couple of direct quotes. "But that isn't fair. It wasn't the little girl's fault. The story made me feel hollow, and guilty too. A girl my age had sacrificed herself to save her friends." Yeah, next to that, the joke sounds a little tasteless, doesn't it?
Do exactly as I say, and maybe you survive this.
Does she think she's in charge?
Who do you think would be in charge?
All this bickering over who's in charge was not in the book.
Heroes' quests are world-defining events. They have made and broken empires, altered the course of human civilization.
You know, this shot would be a whole lot more impactful if the show had thought to establish that Olympus is in the Empire State Building back at camp, like in the book. Instead, they saved that reveal for later, which means that this shot is only meaningful to people who have already read the book. Or I guess for those rewatching.
But if this is so important, why didn't Chiron spring for plane tickets?
Sorry, I assumed someone had told you. Percy, it isn't just the monsters who are going to be trying to stop us. Zeus might decide to take a shot at you himself.
The flying ban had already been established before they left camp. In fact, Percy passed the winged shoes on to Grover as soon as Luke gave them to him because of it.
Okay, I'm gonna go get us some snacks.
This scene did not happen in the book. The Furies destroyed the bus before it made any stops for anything. Also, the weather is looking pretty clear right now. In the book, it was raining pretty bad during the bus ride, probably because Zeus was still mad.
I'll come with you.
No, you'll stay right there.
Why? It smells terrible back here.
Monsters can't smell you through that, so that's where I want you.
You know, this scene would have been a great time to explain that Gabe's smell had been covering Percy's scent for the last however many years. But nope, it's just a poop joke that wasn't in the book.
I want to vote. Who thinks that we should all go get to breathe fresh air and buy our own snacks?
There's no voting.
More pointless bickering that was not in the book. Yes, Percy and Annabeth did argue for a bit early on, but they at least used that to set up the Athena-Poseidon rivalry. Here, they're just constantly arguing over nothing, and it accomplishes nothing for the story.
Grover, please, can you help your friend?
I really don't want to be a tiebreaker. I have a better idea. Oh golly, the road's getting bumpy.
Okay, this is actually pretty in character for Grover. You get a sin-off for this.
It's true they are more likely to sense a more powerful demigod. But it isn't your power exactly that draws them. It's more complicated than that. What a monster senses kinda depends on the monster. Some are better at sensing your inadequacy. Some your need for glory, your shame.
You know, there's actually a canonical short story by Rick Riordan's son, Haley Riordan, which explains how and why monsters can smell demigods. It's called The Son of Magic, and it's really good. And precisely zero of what Grover's saying is established in that story or any of the other books. And considering that unlike Rick, Haley was not on the production team in any capacity, I'm gonna double sin this.
Nothing will stop them. Not even death.
This is the only explanation the show provides for the monsters coming back from the dead, which leaves a pretty glaring plot hole. In the book, it's explained that monsters are primal forces with no mortal souls, and thus they can reform in Tartarus and escape back into the world of the living.
If you guys were better at your job, I might not have noticed you here so easily.
This did not happen in the book. Annabeth stayed with Percy and Grover the entire time.
I'm here to collect your friend.
Collect them?
Lure him off this bus where I can take him quietly away from so many eyes, and your quest goes on unimpeded and unburdened.
F***ing how? Having Percy on the quest is kind of crucial since he has to be the one to return the bolt to appease Zeus. Annabeth herself acknowledges this in the book. How does this proposal make any sense at all? Also, the Furies weren't interested in Percy specifically, they wanted what they thought he had, and didn't seem to care if they got him with it.
I don't think these windows are supposed to...
The Furies actually waited until the bus was moving to attack the trio, specifically so it would be more difficult for them to escape. The bus the trio took did not have an emergency exit. Again, this made it difficult for them to escape. This is not how Tisiphone died in the book. Granted, it's never specified which one of the other two Furies was Tisiphone, but both of them were killed by Percy using Riptide. Neither Alecto nor Tisiphone have their signature flaming whips.
We're done here. Let's go.
Where is Majira? In the book, all three Furies were part of the bus attack, but only Alecto and Tisiphone appear here. In the show, the trio escaped from a stopped, nearly empty bus, leaving the bus largely intact and letting one Fury live to chase them down. In the book, Percy used Annabeth's invisibility cap to crash the bus while it was in motion, and then while everyone's evacuating, the bus is struck by lightning and f***ing explodes, killing Alecto in the process. Wouldn't that have been way more awesome to watch?
Somewhere up ahead, this turns into a satyr path. It's a road through the wilderness.
Satyr paths are not a thing in the books. Grover did try to play a Find Path song, but the goal was to get them out of the woods, and even that didn't work, since Percy couldn't even avoid walking into a tree. Oh, did I mention this part was supposed to take place at night? As much as I'd hate to have to see another poorly lit night scene, it did kind of add to how desperate they were.
If we stay in the wilderness, how are we going to find a phone?
What do we need a phone for? We don't need help. We're fine. If we call camp, we're basically saying it was a mistake to choose us.
The show suggests that using a phone is off limits because outside help would invalidate the quest, or at least that Annabeth is too proud to ask, which admittedly is fairly in character. In the book, though, it's said that monsters can trace phones, which makes it genuinely pragmatic to not use one.
Why are you so afraid of who you are?
What was that supposed to mean? Afraid of who I am? I'm not afraid.
Once again, an argument that helped flesh out the characters is replaced with pointless bickering. This time, Annabeth and Percy were arguing about whether or not it was a good idea for him to crash the bus and save her and Grover, or whether he should have just saved himself.
You know what's interesting about this particular satyr path is it's actually the one my Uncle Ferdinand took when he set out on his own quest.
In the book, Grover never mentioned Uncle Ferdinand prior to finding him in Medusa's garden.
You and your mother seem close, so why don't we ask her for help?
Grover, will you explain to your friend that he needs to pull himself together?
Grover was firmly on Percy's side in the argument about whether or not he should have saved them. I guess it makes sense for him to not want to take sides in an argument this petty, but it still really changes the dynamic of the scene.
I don't know why you keep pulling him into this. He's on my side.
What makes you think that?
He's my protector. It's his job.
He was my protector first.
First?
In the book, it was actually Grover who revealed that he had a history with Annabeth when he mentions the fact that she forgave him for some past mistake.
Thalia, Luke, and Annabeth had a satyr protector. That was you.
Wait, so you do want to have a plot twist involving the Thalia story? Then what was the point of revealing the Luke and Annabeth bit to begin with? That just cheapens this reveal because it makes the fact that you're hiding something more obvious. Not to mention that this is still way too soon for the reveal. How do you bungle such a well-done twist this badly? Ew, Grover, put some pants on. I can see your hocks. Yes, I know that the mist is theoretically supposed to hide them, but Grover still wore long pants and shoes in the book for good measure. With how much they're clearly hurting for VFX, this change just feels wasteful.
Grover, what are you doing?
Somebody's making hamburgers in the middle of nowhere on a satyr path. Whoever it is, they're from our world.
Auntie M's Garden Gnome Emporium was on a 2-lane road through the backwoods, and the trio thought it was an ordinary roadside tourist trap. Auntie M's garden was not full of petrified monsters, only humans. This is pretty important, as the monster statues are kind of a dead giveaway for Auntie M's identity. Also, these statues don't look much like any monsters I know of. We do see werewolves in Heroes of Olympus, and I guess this might be a Cyclops, but neither of these statues match either creature's description.
Auntie M has a garden full of petrified stone folks. Yeah, this is someone from our world, all right. Anyone want to guess what M is short for?
Well, now this scene is officially DOA. In the book, none of the kids realized that Auntie M was Medusa until they were already in way too deep. Apparently, the writers decided that didn't make much sense, especially for Annabeth, but I'd like to raise a few points in the book's defense. Number 1, 2 of the 3 clues they point to, the satyr path and the monster statues, are not in the book. The show wrote itself into that corner. Number 2, Annabeth and Percy are both dyslexic, so neither of them could read the sign. Number 3, they were tired and hungry from walking through the woods all night without any food. And number 4, Medusa is implied to have literal hypnotic powers. So this change doesn't really improve anything, and only serves to kill a pretty suspenseful sequence from the book. You better have something good to replace it with.
Let's get out of here, please, while we still can.
The trio were not cornered into Auntie M's by Electo, or any other monster. They just went in looking for food.
Not today, friends. Not on my doorstep.
Oh, shoot.
If you have something to resolve...
This is not how Medusa's human form looked in the book. She took the form of an elderly Middle Eastern woman in a black burqa. I can definitely see why they dropped that specific idea, because it does come off a bit culturally insensitive. Something I really should have acknowledged when talking about this in my video on the Lightning Thief movie, instead of just calling it a clever idea. Sorry about that. Anyway though, I think they kind of threw out the baby with the bathwater here, since all this really conceals is her eyes. They could have come up with other ways to conceal Medusa's full body. Off the top of my head, dress her like a Victorian widow. I think that would be a great look for her.
I think we can trust her.
What?
Dude! I can't explain it, My mom used to tell me her story. And the point was always that she isn't what people think. And I definitely trust my mom.
The only reason Percy trusted Medusa was because he was the last one to realize who she was. As soon as he did figure things out, he immediately went on the defensive.
You must be hungry. I left snacks on the table while I get something proper going.
Medusa did not serve any of these to the trio. Just burgers, shakes, and fries. Also, she did not serve them at a fancy dinner table. She served them in a fast food dining area.
You think it's safe to eat?
Percy, I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm really hungry, and I'm ready to take that chance.
Grover was actually the most distrustful of Auntie M in the book due to her monster scent. Even Annabeth was too hungry to listen to him.
You're concerned I would hold a grudge against you simply because you are a daughter of Athena?
Kind of, yeah, that's exactly what you did in the book. Medusa immediately cringed when she saw Annabeth's eyes and targeted her specifically during the fight. If I didn't know the author of the book signed off on this line, I'd probably call it insulting to the source material and add 5 or even 10 sins to the count. But since he did, I will restrain myself and only add 1.
So you're not a monster, what are you then?
A survivor.
Okay. The show seems to be doing the best it can to allude to the mainstream interpretation of Ovid's Metamorphoses, that Medusa's affair with Poseidon in Athena's temple was non-consensual. The book, meanwhile, was very clear about avoiding that interpretation, describing it as a consensual affair. For what it's worth, both interpretations of the myth are valid. The Latin grammar is a little ambiguous. Also, since they seem to be trying to make Medusa more sympathetic, I have to ask, why did they cut out any mention of her sisters, Stheno and Euryale? They were mentioned in the book, and I think it would add a lot to what they're going for here, since depending on your interpretation, they were given the same curse as Medusa simply for being her sister.
Something's burning. Would you give me a hand in the kitchen? I think lunch is ready.
The gang stuck together the entire time they were at Auntie M's. They did not split up for any reason.
Your mother and I, we're like sisters in a way. Targeted by the same monster.
Medusa harbored no ill will towards Poseidon in the book, and even wanted to save Percy's statue as a memento of him.
Where is she now? Your mother. Is she safe? And do you trust your friends to help you to make her safe? Will they let you make her safe if it conflicts with their quest? I could help you remove them from the equation.
Medusa made no such proposal in the book. She wanted to petrify all three of them and didn't care what they wanted. She did try to convince Percy that he was better off petrified than being the god's pawn, but that's the closest we get.
So that you can be free of them. If you ask me to.
Percy Jackson is not Batman. Yet again, we see Medusa portrayed as a conventionally attractive young woman with snake hair and weird eyes. Medusa is supposed to be completely monstrous in appearance, with a misshapen face, bulging eyes, boar-like tusks, and brass bat wings and talons. The idea is that she's so ugly that just the sight of her is enough to kill you. Why does nobody get this right? The fight with Medusa took place outside in the garden.
If neither of you will help teach these lessons, perhaps you should be the lessons. When I ship your statues to Olympus, maybe that will get my point across even better.
Medusa did not plan to ship the trio to Olympus. She wanted to smash Annabeth and keep Percy as a memento of Poseidon. And I guess Grover would just be another piece of the collection.
Let's have a look at you.
Percy never tried to fight Medusa with his eyes shut. That would be Grover. Annabeth gave him a gazing ball to see her reflection, just as the original Perseus did with Athena's shield. While Grover was still a bit of a clumsy flyer at this point, he was good enough at it to land some hits on Medusa with a tree branch, even with his eyes closed. They don't call him the Red Baron for nothing.
Now!
This is not how Medusa died in the book. Percy just used the gazing ball. And this is not how Alecto died in the book. As I mentioned earlier, she died in the bus explosion.
What is it?
Uncle Ferdinand.
Grover found Uncle Ferdinand in Medusa's garden back when they first arrived. He thought it was just a statue at first, of course, and only put it together later on.
This is as far as he got on his quest. We aren't even to Trenton.
Grover never actually thought that hard about the implications of finding Uncle Ferdinand in Medusa's garden. I guess he'd already come to terms with the fact that he had probably died.
But look at him. He doesn't look afraid.
Yeah, but he doesn't look like he's playing the pipes either, so that's still inaccurate.
What are we gonna do with the head? I just took down a Fury with it, and I wasn't even trying. We can't just leave it for someone to find. Leave the hat on and bury it in the basement. That ought to keep it safe.
Percy never proposed this in the book. Sending it to Olympus was his first idea.
Now, can we talk about the bigger issue here? You could have saved your mother. That's what she said to you, like you discussed it already.
Okay, while we're at it, you should have accepted my offer.
As I said before, neither of these proposals happened in the book. Percy and Annabeth's post-Medusa argument was over the fact that Percy was stupid enough to not run away when they had the chance.
She asked you a question back in the woods, and you never really answered. What are you so afraid of?
What are you talking about?
You heard me. You've been fighting with her. You've been fighting with me.
Because the Oracle said one of you would betray me. Okay?
Percy never told Grover or Annabeth about the second half of the prophecy. At least not until after the quest was over.
I think I've got a better idea what to do with this.
Hey, Percy, you forgot to grab the freight bill with the address to the underworld. That's kind of important information to have for later.
They will see this as impertinent.
I am impertinent.
Yes, but we're not.
Really, very not.
At this point, Annabeth had basically given up on trying to argue with Percy. She'd just accepted that he had a talent for annoying the gods. If the previous 2 episodes were Mandela Effect Percy Jackson, this episode ventures dangerously close to in-name only territory. The plot beats of the book are fulfilled in the most trivial ways possible, while the actual events are warped beyond recognition. While I think that modern re-examinations of Medusa's story can be quite fascinating, Percy Jackson's Medusa was very much meant to be a send-up to her classical portrayal. And quite frankly, I don't think this take on Medusa brings a whole lot new to the table. It doesn't even do anything with the idea of her being an innocent victim, because in the end, she just turns out to be evil after all. As for the rest of the episode, it's not much better. The bus fight felt pretty underwhelming compared to the book, and the extra bits with Alecto didn't seem to add anything other than an excuse to force the trio into Medusa's lair, which they wouldn't have needed if they'd stuck to the book. And I think I've said enough already about the bickering. This is definitely my least favorite episode of the series so far. The good news is that it does get better. The bad news is, it gets worse. This scene does not appear in any of the books. It was completely made up for the show.
You have to let go, Percy. I can't.
Percy is never said to have been afraid of water at any point in his life. And you would think he would have mentioned it if he had been, considering the irony and his own sense of humor. He does develop a fear of drowning in Heroes of Olympus after nearly being smothered in muskeg, but that's a good bit later in the timeline.
Mom?
Hello again, little hero. A forbidden child attracts attention. A forbidden hero, well, they attract doom.
Finally, a dream that's in the correct place, more or less. But it's still not entirely correct. For one, the Lantern Man still wasn't part of it. The voice was coming from deep in the pit. For two, instead of delivering cryptic warnings, the voice actually made Percy an offer. Bring him the Master Bolt, and he'll give Percy his mother. And for three, the dream is supposed to end with the voice from the pit pulling on Percy to try to escape. Fortunately, the spirits of the dead come to wake Percy up. Okay, I guess we're just on the train now with no explanation. In the book, Grover got them the money for train tickets with the help of a stray poodle named Gladiola. Gladiola had run away from his rich family, but agreed to let the trio return him for the reward money. It's one of the funniest scenes in the book, no idea why they cut it. I'd assume time constraints, but then I realized that this is the first episode of the series to be adapted from a single chapter of the book.
Hey, you asleep?
Yes.
Wow, they even sprung for sleeper tickets. They couldn't afford that in the book, even with Gladiola's reward money, and that was twice what the camp had given them.
You and Thalia were really close, right?
Again, Percy did not know Annabeth and Thalia were friends by this point. This conversation could not have happened.
When Luke and Thalia found me, Luke cared for me right away. But Thalia, she made me earn it.
No, she didn't. Again, Luke and Thalia both agreed to take care of Annabeth at the same time. For f***'s sake, she was 7 years old and living in a warehouse. This version of Thalia sounds like a jackass.
Is that why you give me a hard time? I gotta earn it with you too?
Yeah, maybe.
No, Annabeth gave Percy a hard time because she was too caught up in their parents' rivalry. Well, that and because Percy was kind of an idiot.
I started out as a gift to my father. That's how it works with Athena. We're born from a thought in her mind and then given to a partner she feels connected to.
This is actually not revealed until the 4th book. Nobody really thought it needed explaining until Percy remembered, oh wait, Athena is a virgin goddess. How does she have kids? Not to mention that this explanation implies that Athena makes the children alone, while in the book, it's very clear that the father's mind is also part of it.
For a while, I was treated like a gift.
No, actually, she wasn't. As far as Annabeth can remember, her father always saw her as a burden he never asked for. Echidna was never shown doing whatever the hell this is.
2 days until we reach Los Angeles.
Wait, sleeper tickets from New Jersey to Los Angeles? Gladiola only got them as far as Denver. Where the f did they get the money for these tickets?
I've never been to Los Angeles before. I'm guessing neither of you have been to Los Angeles. So, how will we have any idea where we're going?
You look for DOA recording studios. You should know that by now, but you didn't grab the damn freight bill when you had the chance.
Are those
centaurs?
There used to be herds of them everywhere.
What happened to them?
Humans.
Centaurs are not buffalo. There is no indication in any of the books that they are threatened by human activity. The thing that prompts the discussion of Pan was a littered campsite.
The bravest satyrs volunteer to become searchers, trying to find Pan.
In the book, Grover explicitly says he wants to become a searcher. It's kind of the reason he's on the quest to begin with, because the only way for him to become one is to help Percy on one.
Your uncle we found in Medusa's, Ferdinand. He was a searcher.
And Grover's father too, let's not forget him.
You want to explain?
This did not happen in the book. In fact, nothing bad happened on the train at all. It was only when they got off that things went south.
Can you tell me what time you left the cabin?
Are we under arrest?
I don't think you want to take that tone with me, little girl.
Okay, this is definitely going to be open to interpretation due to a variety of factors, but going strictly by her characterization in the books, I would expect Annabeth to at least attempt to talk the cop into letting them go, using persuasion or deception. Of course, it's not like we can know for certain because they never had to deal with any cops in the book to begin with.
Either way, we aren't spending the day answering questions in the St. Louis police station.
The stop at St. Louis was a planned layover. Annabeth just wanted to do some sightseeing while they were there.
Do you mind if I sit?
In the book, Echidna had the Chimera out on a leash, not in a carrier. Also, this is not how Echidna looked. She looked like a fat lady in a blue dress, probably because she had to hide a coiled up snake tail underneath it.
Isn't that right, Precious? Yes, sweetheart. My little one here.
Echidna uses a variety of pet names for the Chimera here, but in the book, she only ever called him Sonny.
We've run across a few monsters like you, and we've sent them all packing.
Monsters like me. Of course they're like me. They were my children.
No, they weren't. The Furies were daughters of Uranos and Nyx. The Minotaur was the son of Pasiphae and the Cretan bull, and Medusa was the daughter of Phorcys and Keto, which would actually make her Echidna's sister. What do you mean I'm being too literal?
The mother of monsters.
Echidna.
Seriously? No monotreme jokes?
Monster. It's an odd word, considering my grandmother is your great-grandmother, and this has always been a family story.
Okay, this is probably veering into pet peeve territory, but I have some opinions on how this show uses the term monster. In the book, monster is used almost like an objective taxonomic category, describing mythical creatures in general, regardless of their alignment. The show seems to take a more subjective view of the term, raising questions of who it really makes sense to call monsters. The book never really bothered with such questions, it just took the stance of, yeah, some monsters are good.
My little one here. She's just a pup now.
This is actually kind of interesting, as it seems the show is trying to fix a mythical inaccuracy from the book. You see, in the book, the Chimera is referred to as a male, but in mythology, the Chimera is consistently described as female. So the show seems to have decided to go the myth-accurate route. And you know what? I'm in favor of this. It's an inconsequential change to the story that makes it more authentic to its inspiration, so I'll throw the show a bone on this one. No pun intended.
I needed you to understand what was happening so that she could track the scent.
The Chimera didn't really hunt the trio. Echidna just unleashed it where she found them.
You should run now.
Are Are we sure this is supposed to be the Chimera? Because the Chimera's tail doesn't look like that. It's supposed to be a massive diamondback snake. Percy was the only one of the trio to face the Chimera. The others had already been separated from him before it came out of hiding. I don't see any rhinestones on the Chimera's collar.
Percy!
Open this door!
Come back here! Open this door! What is that?
It's a stinger.
Again, the Chimera did not have stingers on its tail, it had snake fangs. Stingers are more of a Manticore thing, and no Manticores showed up until the third book. Also, while the Chimera's snake tail did bite Percy, that was basically its finishing move, not its opener.
We aren't going to be able to outrun them for very long.
We don't need to. We just need a safe place to hole up. A sanctuary dedicated to Athena.
There's an Athenian temple hidden somewhere in the middle of downtown St. Louis.
Yes. Except it's not all that hidden.
The Gateway Arch was not a temple to Athena in the books, nor did they go there to take refuge from a monster attack. Annabeth just didn't want to stop in St. Louis without going to see it in person because she's such a huge architecture enthusiast.
It's 630 feet wide, 630 feet tall, both to within an inch. It's got no internal support. Each side is balanced perfectly against the other. And it's earthquake-proof, so Poseidon can't ruin it. This is how you show Athena your love.
I bet a lot of you are expecting me to take a sin off for this because it shows Annabeth's love for architecture. Here's the thing, though. This is the only time Annabeth has a moment like this, and the whole context of the scene frames it as being less about architecture and more about Athena. So I still feel like the show missed a trick here. Maybe if she'd been reading Vitruvius on the train, or if they'd actually let her say she wanted to be an architect like in the book, I'd be singing a different tune. But as it is...
It's a monument to some other stuff, too.
You're talking about what some humans want this place to be about. I'm talking about what it actually is.
This argument was not in the book. In fact, Grover wasn't even paying attention at all during the museum tour. He was too busy snacking on jelly beans and sniffing for monsters, which is apparently more difficult underground since everything smells like the underworld down there.
Well, since our train exploded...
Wait, what? When did that happen? Because I certainly didn't see anything to indicate that happened. It certainly didn't happen in the book. The train was right there waiting for them when they got back from the arch. You blew up the wrong vehicle and didn't even show it.
I guess you were right, by the way. We needed a safe place, and your mom had one waiting.
You know, this is my mother's place, but a temple is a temple. Maybe you could say hi to your dad while we're here.
I don't want anything from him. He's had his chances. Honestly, you've done more for me in the past few days than my father's done in my entire life.
The show seems to be really playing up Annabeth's devotion to her mother and Percy's resentment of his father. While these ideas were present in the book, they were nowhere near this overt about it.
Somewhere around here, the Oracle is laughing at us, but you know... Whoa!
In the book, the Chimera's venom took effect almost immediately after Percy was bit.
I have an idea. Come on, help me. Okay. The water curing back at camp. It should work for poison too, right? Maybe it needs to be naturally running water for Poseidon to be able to heal him.
No, it doesn't. Percy can heal himself from artificial water sources as well as natural. In fact, the first time he got a water boost was when he dumped a jug of water on himself during sword training. If that counts, this should count too.
Okay, look, we'll take Percy inside and we'll go to the temple's altar. The highest point, the best view.
The trio didn't go to the top of the arch for any tactical reason. Once again, they just did it for sightseeing purposes.
Guys, did you hear that?
Hear what? What was that back there? What did you hear? She spoke to you. Electo did that with me back in the museum in New York.
And just like with Electo, this did not happen in the book.
How did the Chimera even get inside here? How did any monster get inside here?
Annabeth?
We're in a sanctuary. Athena would have had to let her in, but why would she do that?
Annabeth, what did Echidna say to you?
She said my impertinence wounded my mother's pride, and that will be my doom.
Athena didn't punish Annabeth for the Medusa head thing. In fact, it never really had any consequences for any of the trio. If there's any god to blame for the Chimera attack, it's Zeus, who is implied to have led Echidna to Percy's location.
We gotta get everybody out of here.
None of the trio pulled a fire alarm to clear out the observation deck. The Chimera attack happened right as the observation deck was closing, so there were only a handful of people there to begin with.
You and Percy, follow them down. What? Someone has to stay back to slow her down and buy everyone some time.
Wait. Take this.
This is not how the trio were split up in the book. There just wasn't enough room on the tram car for all three of them, and Percy volunteered to wait for the next one. Of course, if he'd known doing that would leave him alone with the Chimera, he probably would have asked them to stick around to support him. Remember how I said there was still a handful of people on the observation deck when the Chimera attacked? Yeah, they were still there when Percy started fighting, which gave him an extra bit of motivation to protect them. This is an interesting creature design to be sure, but it's an odd choice for the Chimera. The Chimera in the book is described similarly to its traditional mythical depiction. A lion head and front legs, a goat body and hind legs, and a snake for a tail. Also, it had a bloody mane and the same collar as its dog form with a helpful tag for anyone who finds it stray. Also, at this point, Echidna had started to reveal her own snake-like monster form as well. When did Echidna get telekinetic powers? I don't remember that from the books or real mythology. In the book, the Chimera blasted a hole in the arch with its fire breath. Why didn't you just do that? Hey, show, you got that backwards. It's supposed to be Riptide that falls down the hole, and Percy that stays on the observation deck. Well, this is kind of a letdown. In the book, Percy's fall from the arch was a leap of faith, the first time he ever put his trust in Poseidon for anything. Here, we get none of that, and Poseidon saving Percy just feels like a literal deus ex machina. Once again, the show is actually trying to correct a genuine error from the book. When the book was initially written, Rick Riordan had been under the impression that the Gateway Arch either spanned the Mississippi River, or was at least much closer to the bank than it really was. As a result, both Percy and his sword fall into the river, which is rather unrealistic. So instead, the show changes this to where the river moves to catch Percy, which is an interesting move, but I think it's about the most sensical you can get. Percy actually landed softly on the riverbed. He kicked up a bit of trash, but never got stuck in anything.
Just breathe. Your father is here. He's always been here. Trust him. Just breathe.
He also had no trouble breathing underwater the first time. It's a weird feeling for him, sure, but he gets the hang of it pretty quickly. I will give the episode this. It was much less of a slog to get through than the first two episodes, and the changes to the story were far less egregious than the third. But at the same time, it feels far less substantial. This is a single episode based on a single chapter, and I think it shows. While the story was well paced, so little actually happened that I was honestly shocked it ended where it did on my first viewing. And as inconsequential as they were, the changes they did make still bugged me. The show seems very dedicated to not letting the characters stumble into danger, which I think defeats a key theme from the book. The real world is dangerous for demigods. There are monsters on every corner. Stumbling into danger is just something that happens on quests. It happened to Perseus, Theseus, it's basically the entire plot of the Odyssey, and it's something that's gonna happen to Percy Jackson. One of the big problems I had with the first movie was the hunt for the pearls because it undermined that idea, and I think the show is making that same mistake by adding the train attack and turning the Gateway Arch into an Athenian temple. And on the subject of Athena, wow, this episode did her dirty. Athena did have some petty moments in the books, particularly when Poseidon was involved, but one of her most consistent traits was her desire to protect Annabeth. Allowing her to be potentially killed by the Chimera for something so petty is the exact opposite of that. Unless Octavian did something to awaken her Minerva personality. But all that being said, this was honestly one of the better episodes. It's still not great, but it's an improvement over what came before it. Let's see how well they keep this up. Wait, that's how you start the episode? You're not going to show Percy's conversation with the Nereid? Well, that's lame. That's basically another whole chapter cut.
They're looking at us.
Grover and Annabeth actually did a pretty good job staying hidden from the crowd in the book. In the book, this happened far earlier, back when Percy was taking the bus home with Grover. This is kind of a big change, since Percy seeing them snip that thread is not only meant to foreshadow a death in his future, but also bookend the entire series. We're halfway through the first season, it's a little late to put a bookend on it now. Also, the sound of the thread being cut is supposed to be loud enough to hear across 4 lanes of traffic, but I don't hear any audio effects to indicate that. Percy reunited with Grover and Annabeth back by the Arch. He made his way out of the river and up to the police cordon, where they eventually found him. Also, why is Percy so soaked? One of his abilities as a son of Poseidon is that he never gets wet unless he chooses to.
I knew you'd never agree, and there wasn't enough time.
So,
Grover and Annabeth kind of have their roles reversed here. In the book, Grover was the one who tackled Percy with a hug, while Annabeth kept her distance and pretended to be mad.
We need to go to Santa Monica. My father's gonna meet me there.
The Nereid did not tell Percy that Poseidon would meet him when he got to Santa Monica, nor did Percy seem to be under the impression that he would. This is basically just set up for some extra angst material later.
The cops are after us?
Yeah.
Isn't that gonna make it hard for us to get on a train? Hey guys.
As I mentioned in the last video, the Amtrak train was right there waiting for them after the battle with Echidna, so they were able to get back on with no issue. The only reason they didn't make it to LA was because they could only afford tickets to Denver.
I mean, we don't even know who actually stole the thing, or why, or how deep this goes. I'm saying, we're not just trying to retrieve a thing. I think we might need to be detectives here too.
Percy did try to play detective in the book, but for different reasons. Between the fact that the Furies kept asking about an object, and the fact that the voice in the pit was trying to barter with him for the bolt, Percy was starting to wonder if they might have been wrong about who took the bolt.
Back at the Arch, I saw the 3 fates, and I saw Atropus cut a piece of thread.
When you see a string cut,
It means one of us is going to die.
Okay, guys, we need to talk about this whole fate thing.
Percy never seemed to have any trouble believing in the power of the fates.
no, we're good.
You sure? Because you guys are so behind schedule.
Ares.
Listen, dummies, I'm hungry. There's a halfway decent diner up the road. If you want my help, you'll meet me there, but don't dawdle.
This is not how the trio met Ares. They'd already stopped at the diner hoping to scam for some food, when Ares showed up and offered to buy some for them. I don't see any flame decals, shotgun mounts, or bright red headlight on Ares' motorcycle. Also, Ares is supposed to have nuclear fireballs where his eyes would be. Aw, the food's already on the table. Does that mean we don't get to see Ares threatening a waitress to accept his gold drachmas? I guess that might have been a little violent, but that was kind of a great evil moment for him.
Give me a second, I'm just starting a fight on Twitter here.
Okay, this is some grade A Riordanverse humor.
Percy was always troubled.
I don't see any sign of Sugar, Gabe's grief counselor, anywhere in that news footage. This show seems to have a hard time committing to actually showing Gabe as the slime ball he's supposed to be.
Doesn't matter. Whether the bolt's retrieved or not, Zeus is going to war with Poseidon.
This idea is entirely original to the show. The reason Ares gave for considering the bolt quest hopeless in the book was simply that if he couldn't find it, nobody could. Also, this is the part where Ares should be explaining that he was the one who suggested Hades might have taken the bolt. After all, framing somebody to start a war is the oldest trick in the book.
See, years before I was born, my grandpa Kronos ate my aunts and uncles. Yeah. Then my dad made him puke them back up, then chopped him into a million pieces and chucked him into a bottomless pit, so that kind of set the tone right out of the gate.
As I said back when I covered episode 1, the backstory of the Titan War was supposed to be revealed during the museum tour. I still don't get why they moved it here instead, considering that it leaves the museum tour lacking in any actual educational content.
You get me my shield back, and I'll get you to the underworld by lunch tomorrow with a plan to invade Hades' palace.
Ares didn't offer a plan to invade Hades' palace in the book. He offered Percy information about his mother, which ended up being that she was alive. But I guess we already blew that load, didn't we?
One catch. I really do need that shield back, so I'm gonna keep the satyr here as collateral so you don't run off.
What? No.
Okay.
This did not happen in the book. Grover went with Percy and Annabeth to Waterland. The subplot that this leads to is entirely original to the show. Huh. I always thought the park was called Watt R-A-D. That's what the sign said in the book, after all. Also, I don't see any chains or barbed wire to keep anybody out.
I haven't seen a lot of horror movies, but this seems like exactly the kind of place they suggest to avoid.
I never seen any kind of movie.
Never? Well, if neither of us is dead in a few days, we really ought to fix that.
This is never said in the books. In fact, just 1 year later in The Sea of Monsters, Annabeth is familiar enough with the Jason and the Argonauts film to scoff at it when Percy brings it up. I'm guessing this is a nod to the Battle of the Labyrinth, where Percy and Annabeth plan to go to a movie together as their first date. The trio did not go through the front gate. As I said, it was chained up. Instead, Percy and Annabeth had to climb over the fence, holding down the barbed wire for each other, while Grover just used the winged shoes to fly over.
Wait, Percy, stop!
The trio encountered no traps at Waterland until they reached the Tunnel of Love. As far as they were aware, it was just an ordinary abandoned water park. Because of this, when they ultimately did trigger the booby trap on Ares' shield, it took them completely by surprise.
In the mechanism there, that's celestial bronze.
Oh, fascinating. Annabeth, what is happening right now?
Celestial bronze is what your sword is made of. If you're a human, it'll pass right through you. If you're a monster, or demigod.
All of this was established when Chiron gave Riptide to Percy on Half-Blood Hill. And it's kind of important information for Percy to know before going out into the real world, so I don't understand why he wasn't told this until now. Why not just explain it in that scene in episode 2 where they talk about her other abilities?
A god built this.
What kind of god builds amusement parks?
Hephaestus.
This is not how the trio figured out Hephaestus was involved in the Waterland trap. In fact, they didn't realize it at all until it was too late. The only clue they had was seeing Ada marks on different parts of the Thrill Ride of Love, which even Annabeth didn't pick up on until they'd already sprung the trap. Also, there is no indication that Hephaestus built the entire Waterland park. He did build the Thrill Ride of Love as a trap for Ares and Aphrodite, but by all appearances, the rest of the park was already there.
We've met before. We met at the solstice. On Olympus?
Ugh, protester.
Oh, I wasn't one of the protesters. I'm a fan. Nature is brutal. Red in tooth and claw, right?
So what are you, like a casual World War II buff? You've seen Saving Private Ryan, have you?
I prefer the Turbot War. The Lobster War? The 335 Years War. Your deep cuts.
As clever as all this is, it's not in the book. Grover was just as freaked out to see Ares as everybody else. Even if he's lying here, Grover is a terrible liar in the books, so it's still a sin. Hey, set designers, you know that Waterland is a water park, right? Like, it's in the name? 'Cause this looks more like a regular amusement park. Also, there's supposed to be a moment where they loot the Waterland gift shop for new clothes and gear, which never happens in this episode.
Ares has always had a thing with
Aphrodite. She's Hephaestus' wife.
Percy did not know about Ares' affair with Aphrodite. In fact, when he saw how run down Waterland was, he assumed Ares' date must have been some kind of ugly monster, like Echidna.
This must be where Ares and Aphrodite got caught.
Ares actually told them to look in the Tunnel of Love for his shield. Even if it hadn't been so obvious, they wouldn't have needed to figure it out for themselves. Also, way to make the Thrill Ride of Love look underwhelming. In the book, the starting pool was 50 yards across and surrounded by Cupid statues with mirrors all around the edges. And the boat is supposed to be pink and white, with a canopy and hearts all over it.
The shield must be in there. We just gotta go get it.
Sure. Let's go check out the scary ghost ride.
In the book, it was Annabeth who refused to go into the Tunnel of Love because she was that embarrassed to be seen in it with Percy. In the book, the trap was in the starting area of the ride. In fact, the tunnel section didn't seem to be part of the plan at all, considering that the ride was drained of water, and Percy had to use his powers to get it going. This leads to them being launched through the tunnel like a rocket.
What is love?
There's no mention of any music playing in the Thrill Ride of Love.
It's Hephaestus' story.
These holographic images of Hephaestus' life were not in the book, only cliché Valentine's Day artworks.
There it is. Ares' shield.
Yeah, but where's Aphrodite's scarf? That was supposed to have been left behind as well. This actually comes up later in the Titan's Curse, when Percy discovers that Annabeth kept it as a trophy, and doesn't understand why, like the oblivious seaweed brain he is.
Jump!
In the show, we never see where the boats go after the end of the ride, because Percy and Annabeth jump off to grab the shield before it gets to that point. In the book, the ride was supposed to end with the boat going out a pair of golden gates. But because it was decommissioned, the gates were chained shut, meaning Percy and Annabeth would have crashed into it and died if they hadn't jumped off at the right moment. Annabeth and Percy never went into the water in the Thrill Ride of Love. When they jumped out of the boat, they were launched into the air and both needed to be caught by Grover.
But that night, when everyone's kids show up for the winter solstice, and I have to sit through their presentation, that night is the worst night of the year every year by far.
It's actually never said that the winter solstice field trip is an annual event. In fact, we see 2 winter solstices later on, in the Titan's Curse and the Lost Hero, and neither one has another demigod field trip. Also, there's no mention of presentations.
This one in particular, it seems, since one of those kids somehow walked off with the Master Bolt.
In the book, the fact that the lightning theft took place at the winter solstice was revealed at the same time it was revealed the bolt was stolen in the first place. Again, kind of weird that they waited this long to reveal this pretty important detail.
It was a gift, with a hidden purpose. Hephaestus offered it to Hera, but as soon as she sat in it, she couldn't get up.
Why are they referencing the story of Hera and the Golden Throne? In the book, they only talk about the golden net that he used to catch Ares and Aphrodite in bed together since, well, the Thrill Ride of Love is meant to catch Ares and Aphrodite together.
Finally, they said if Hephaestus let Hera free, Aphrodite would be his wife.
While this is accurate to some accounts of the myth, Percy Jackson's Greek Gods establishes that Hera's golden throne and Hephaestus' marriage to Aphrodite were unrelated to each other. The only price Hephaestus demanded for releasing Hera was an apology for tossing him off Olympus.
The chair is the bargain. One of us goes in, the other gets the shield.
Finally, we're getting into the actual trap, and I can talk about how completely wrong all of this is. In the book, the boat itself was booby-trapped. When Percy hit a tripwire, the Cupid statues turned and launched chains across the top of the pool, trapping him and Annabeth inside with a bunch of mechanical spiders. Then their heads turned into cameras that broadcasted live to Olympus. Apparently this change was at least partially because of budgetary and production limitations, but I personally think that the book version makes way more sense, both because it calls back to the Golden Net story, and because it's easy to infer how the shield ended up there. Ares and Aphrodite went to Waterland to go on the thrill ride of love together, thinking Hephaestus would never catch them there. But then they saw Hephaestus' hallmark on the boat and realized it was booby-trapped and rushed out of there, only to forget their stuff in a hurry. Here, I'm supposed to believe that Ares and Aphrodite went to Waterland, saw a booby trap literally right out the gate, then went on the thrill ride of love anyway. And somehow, that ended up with Ares' shield getting put in this trap. I hope that if they ever do a Demigod Files series, they do an episode explaining how all this happened.
I'll do it.
What? Wait a minute.
Whoever goes in isn't coming out. That seems pretty clear.
I know, that's why I said wait.
This isn't the arch seaweed brain.
Hey, we finally got a seaweed brain, and it only took 3 episodes. You know in the book she called him that pretty much from the moment he was claimed as a son of Poseidon?
You're not pushing me into the stairwell again.
Yes, I am.
I'm not gonna let you this time. It doesn't work that way.
It's why you're here.
There was never a dilemma like this in the book, or any of the books. Everything that happens here is entirely made up for the show. Hephaestus, what are you doing here? As much as I enjoy seeing my godly parent on the screen, he didn't appear in the books until the Titan's Curse, and doesn't actually play a part in the story until the Battle of the Labyrinth. Also, this guy looks almost nothing like Hephaestus. He looks way too well put together, and doesn't have any of the deformities he's supposed to have. That said, I will knock a sin off for the fact that he is played by a disabled actor, stroke survivor Timothy Omenson.
As it should be.
It isn't how it should be. Eat or be eaten. Power and glory and nothing else matters. Ares is that way. Zeus is that way. My mother is that way. He isn't that way. Maybe I was that way once. But I don't want to be that way anymore.
This is not what Annabeth's character arc in The Lightning Thief was about. Her arc was learning that her mother's feelings towards Percy's father shouldn't dictate her own feelings towards him.
Get in. Don't. I really don't care, but in a few hours, this thing is going to be at the Lotus Casino in Vegas.
Wait, you're actively sending them to the Lotus Casino? In the book, the zoo transport truck was bound for Los Angeles. Vegas was just a pit stop gone wrong, and the trio stumbled into the Lotus Casino by sheer happenstance. Even with the reveal later on, we know you genuinely want Percy to make it to the underworld. Why would you send them to such a hazardous place?
Hermes hangs out there. You play your cards right, and his personal driver can get you to LA in minutes.
Ah, because you want to add more new shit. Hermes doesn't hang out in the Lotus Casino, or anywhere else. He's one of the busiest gods. When he does talk to Percy in the books, he can barely afford to spare a couple minutes. I guess a casino fits his divine domain, but it's not like he has time to sit and gamble all day long.
He was holding something back.
How do you know?
Because I think I got it out of him. I know who stole the Master Bolt.
This plot point was not in the book. The identity of the hero that stole the bolt was never really given much thought. The trio were mostly just focused on finding it. Gonna be honest, I don't really have much bad to say about this one, at least on its own. Grover's subplot with Ares, while completely made up for the show, was quite engaging, and builds up to an interesting cliffhanger. And the scene between Annabeth and Hephaestus does a really good job showing Leia's acting ability. My only real issue is the change to Waterland. I think using the Golden Throne instead of the trap from the book distracts from the whole Ares and Aphrodite thing, and robs us of a potentially thrilling action sequence. But at the same time, this episode kind of emphasizes a broader issue I have with the show, and that's the way it portrays the gods and the kids' relationship with them. We already got a glimpse of this in the previous episode with Athena, but the show in general plays up a lot of the more negative aspects of the gods. While this is in line with the books as a whole, I think it's a little out of place in a Lightning Thief adaptation. While Percy isn't a fan of the gods to begin with, him learning to see their faults and understand the other side of the Titan War is something of a long-running character arc for him across all 5 books. This version of Percy doesn't feel like he needs to learn any of that because he already knows it. Which makes me question what sort of long-running arc they'll do for him instead. Still, I would definitely rate this as the best episode of the season thus far. Unfortunately, it's pretty much downhill from here.
Do you think you're special, Lightning Thief? Do you think you cannot be replaced?
This isn't quite how this dream plays out in the book. It began as an ordinary recurring nightmare for Percy, being forced to take a standardized test while in a straitjacket. Then he sees Thalia tied up next to him, yelling at him to escape, so he slips out of the straitjacket and goes to the edge of the pit, where he overhears this conversation. It's kind of odd that this would take place in the headmaster's office, considering that this was the one dream Percy wasn't meant to be a part of. Also, shockingly, the term Lightning Thief is never actually used in the book. In fact, the only use of epithets was the thief referring to the voice in the pit as the Crooked One.
Give me reason to question your worthiness again, and there is another that just might be ready to take your place.
While the Crooked One did chastise the Lightning Thief for losing the bolt, he was confident enough that things were still on track that he didn't see the need to make threats like this.
Isn't that right, little hero?
The Crooked One was quite shocked when he discovered Percy had infiltrated the dream.
And show me what you are capable of.
And I guess we're skipping the final part of that dream, where the Crooked One gives Percy a vision of him being tortured by skeletons in Hades' throne room, with his mother just out of reach.
Guess we're about to find out.
The trio did not use a prism to send an iris message on the quest for the bolt. They used the fine mist setting on a car wash nozzle. Also, the iris messaging scene was supposed to happen in Denver, back before they met Ares.
Toss the seaweed brain.
This will never stop being weird.
If you want the god's attention, you have to pay for it.
In the book, nobody took issue with having to pay to send IMs. Probably because charging money for a communication service is a fairly reasonable thing to do.
Chiron's holding hands together with both hands. Please tell me you're calling with good news.
We know who stole the bolt.
This is not why they tried IMing Chiron. They wanted to tell him about Percy's talk with the Nereid.
We ran into Ares, and Grover got him talking and realized Ares knew who the thief was, but was covering for them. So who would Ares cover for other than?
His favorite daughter. Clarice is the Lightning Thief.
Clarice was briefly considered a suspect in the lightning theft, but not for this reason. It was only after they realized that Ares himself was involved with the theft that anyone suggested she might be the thief, and even then, the idea never escalated beyond that suggestion. In fact, during this iris message, Luke hinted that Annabeth might have been the thief, by pointing out that it would have been impossible to steal the bolt without something like Hades' Helm of Darkness, or her invisibility cap.
Chiron's gotta arrest her. Find out what she knows. There's more to this than just the bolt. Something bigger. Don't ask me how I know. You just gotta trust me.
Percy actually had no idea that the bolt theft had any deeper purpose until the end of the story. He does have his doubts about who stole the bolt, but not about why the bolt was stolen.
Medusa was Saturday.
I thought Sunday.
No monsters on Sunday. Monday you died in the river.
Guys, when did you turn into an old married couple?
This exchange was not in the book. In fact, Annabeth had stepped away from the iris message early on to deal with some mortals at the car wash playing their music too loud.
We're headed to Las Vegas to find your dad.
Okay, so I guess we're skipping over everything else that they talked about over the iris message. Like Luke trying to reassure Percy that Hades must be the one responsible, reminding Percy to use the shoes, or reassuring Grover that nobody will get turned into a tree this time. I guess the last part isn't as important since they already blew the Thalia twist, but the other two were pretty big bits of foreshadowing.
Men driving this truck are not nice people. Traffickers.
Hey, do you want to know how this information was revealed in the book? We actually got to see the horrible conditions the animals were living in. There's a zebra with gum matted in his hair, an antelope with a party balloon tied to his horn, and a white lion that's nearly starved to death because the handlers keep mixing up his food with the herbivores. It's a really emotional moment, and it does a great job illustrating Grover's desire to protect nature. But I guess we're past the days where MacGyver can show a dehorned rhino animatronic and still get a TV PG, so we have to just take the show's word for it that these animals are being abused.
We can do our best to help all these animals escape, but not if it means we're jeopardizing the quest.
Oh, no.
Annabeth and Percy were more than willing to jeopardize the quest to save the animals in the book. As I said in the last episode, the truck was supposed to take them all the way to LA, but instead they chose to free the animals in Vegas, forcing them to find another way. Way to make our main characters look like assholes.
They've already got a plan to get themselves out. They were really only missing, like, one piece of the puzzle to get the cages unlocked.
What's that?
Thumbs.
The trio put a little bit more than just their thumbs into freeing the animals. Annabeth distracted the drivers by turning invisible and banging on the trailer walls while they were trying to work, while Percy used Riptide to break open the cages. See this zebra here that's in the frame for like 1 second? Some of you are probably wondering why the episode is called We Take a Zebra to Vegas, if this is the only zebra content we get. Well, it's because in the chapter this episode is based on, and thus named after, the zebra not only features more prominently in the truck sequence, but it also talks to Percy. Since Poseidon is also the god of horses, Percy has the ability to talk to horses and other equine animals, like zebras and pegasi, an ability that he uses quite a bit throughout the series.
He seems dangerous.
Oh, they'll be totally fine. I gave them a satyr's blessing, so they'll be able to reach the wilderness.
I meant for the people.
In the book, Percy was genuinely just concerned for the animals. His only response to Grover telling him about the satyr sanctuary was to ask why he didn't do the same for them. It's because it only works on wild animals, so it would only affect Percy. Also, the show has completely skipped over Percy and Annabeth's talk in the zoo truck, where she tells him about her fear of spiders, thanks him for helping her at Waterland, reveals that she knew Thalia, talks about her failed attempt to reconcile with her father, and finally acknowledges Percy as her friend. How are you going to cut such an important scene completely? Especially considering that they reminisce about that moment in Heroes of Olympus.
Your mom told you all the stories. Did she read you the Odyssey? Odysseus lands on a beach. There's these guys who've forgotten where they came from, forgot everything that was important to them. And they got that way because they ate
the lotus flowers.
Oh, come on! Just once, can we let the kids be surprised by something? In the book, the trio stumbled into the Lotus Casino because they were lost, tired, hungry, and had nowhere else to go. Plus, it can be inferred that the trio were put under the Lotus spell before they even walked in the door. Giving it all away like this completely kills the mystery aspect of the chapter.
What do you think, wise girl?
Again, this nickname should have been established way earlier. In fact, Clarice was supposed to be the first one to use it, and then Percy picks it up as a sort of counterpoint to the seaweed brain thing, though he doesn't resort to it as often.
This place is a lot bigger than it looked from the outside.
The trio never actually went into the casino part of the Lotus Casino in the book. They mostly stuck to the kids section, with the arcades and amusement rides.
Go check that side of the floor. I'll take Percy this way.
Percy didn't stick especially close to Annabeth in the Lotus Casino. When the trio weren't all together, they were mostly just doing their own thing.
Like meeting Luke's dad?
Like meeting his mom. She's a seer. A human who can see through the mist. Sometimes I see stuff that messes them up.
Dude, spoiler alert! Percy doesn't learn any of this until the 5th book. You are spoiling a major plot twist from the end of the series. In fact, you know what? I'm gonna do it. I'm adding 5 sins for that. And I'm not even done with this line, because the fact that some mortals aren't affected by the mist isn't confirmed until the 3rd book with the introduction of Rachel Elizabeth Dare. And when it is confirmed, it's immediately followed by the realization that Sally is one of them. And on top of that, the term seer is never used to refer to these mortals. It's just another word for an oracle. You could have just used the term clear-sighted, and everything would have been fine.
Augustus!
Who? This is not a character in the books.
I don't really know why I'm telling you this. Because it's just hard to talk to my friends about it.
Grover had no trouble talking to Percy and Annabeth about his family or the search for Pan in the book. He kept to himself, but that was mostly out of shame for his failures as a keeper.
I found Pan.
What?
Almost. He's here. I've almost got him.
Grover didn't think Pan was at the Lotus Casino. He was just distracted by the games and rides.
So, I've been having these dreams.
In the book, Percy started telling Annabeth about his dreams back on the train before St. Louis. As for this specific dream, he only tells it to her on the cab ride to Santa Monica because the casino's power causes him to forget about it.
But today it was different. Like, I somehow ended up in his dream. Like, I was eavesdropping on him talking to...
Wait, so he was still supposed to be eavesdropping in that scene? Then why was it happening at the headmaster's office? The Lightning Thief wouldn't have any reason to care about Yancey Academy. They didn't even live in New York until they came to camp. Was the headmaster the crooked one all along? This change makes even less sense now.
I don't think I'm allowed to do this. I don't have my searcher's license to look for Pan.
How are we all the way up to episode 6 and only just now learning that searcher's licenses are even a thing? They've mentioned the search for Pan, sure, but nothing about the license. Is it really too much to ask for the show to devote more than a handful of lines to one of its main characters' central motivations?
This is like the least natural place in the world. Seems like a strange choice.
Hang on a second. Did you hear that?
Natural place in the world. Seems like a...
Maybe you didn't. I needed it pointed out to me too. But you can faintly hear someone saying Bianca. If you know, you know.
Hey, demigods. Welcome.
Percy doesn't meet Hermes until the second book, and it was on the beach at Camp Half-Blood, not in a casino. Also, Annabeth was not with him for it.
You want my help to sneak into the underworld.
Wow. You're a really good guesser.
I exist beyond space and time, kid. Why do you think they put me in charge of delivering the mail?
This is an interesting idea, but it's not in the books.
There is a way into the underworld. A secret way.
While there are secret entrances to the underworld, the trio never sought any of them out for the bulk quest. They just took the main entrance at DOA Records, which they knew about ever since Jersey, when Percy was supposed to grab the freaking
You don't want my help. Trust me.
When Hermes does appear in the Sea of Monsters, he gladly helps Percy by giving him several gifts because he thought it would help Luke.
Do you know what that feels like? To be so close to someone you love, knowing neither of you has any choice but to keep hurting each other. I know you do.
Hermes never gave Percy flashbacks to his childhood. He probably could if he wanted to, being a god and all, but he never actually did.
Thanks. That's super helpful.
It was your father who warned me to stay away.
No, it wasn't. Direct interference in the lives of demigods is forbidden by ancient law, which is far older than even Zeus and his siblings.
Said it was awful watching you struggle and feel powerless to stop it.
Poseidon never told any of the other gods that Percy existed. Doing so would kind of be an admission that he broke a sacred oath and endangered Olympus.
If it makes you feel any better, it won't be much use now anyway.
What's that supposed to mean?
This is not how Percy learned what was happening in the Lotus Casino. He figured it out himself by talking with a kid named Darren who thought it was the 1970s. Again, it was a mystery that needed to be unraveled.
Hermes let us sit at that table the whole time, knowing the clock was running out on our quest.
Yes.
Hermes never sabotaged any of the quests in the book. Again, he wanted Percy to succeed for Luke's sake.
And I felt a lot better about having stolen his keys.
Exactly. Wait, what?
Annabeth never tried to steal anything from Hermes at any point in the books.
Now, all we have to do is find this car, and it'll instantly transport us anywhere we want to go.
Hermes is never said to have a magical car of this sort in the books. He gets around using his own winged shoes.
Hermes told me something else. The reason we can't feel time passing is because of the lotus fruit.
We didn't eat any lotus fruit.
They pump it into the air.
At first, I thought this was an original idea, similar to the lotus flower cookies from the movie, but as it turns out, it does have a basis in the book. When the trio first arrive at the casino, Percy notices that the air inside smells like lotus blossoms. So this is, arguably, book accurate. While the Lotus Casino did have VR games, the game that enthralls Grover is a fairly conventional light gun game, where you play as a deer gunning down human hunters. Would have killed to see that on screen.
Grover, we're on a quest. We can't do this without you. We're short on time, and we gotta go. Right now.
A quest? That sounds amazing.
In the book, Grover had to be dragged kicking and screaming away from the virtual deer hunter game. He was that enthralled with the game, the same as Odysseus' crew were so enthralled with the Lotus. And with that, we are officially out of the Lotus Casino, so I can finally start tallying up the things they missed. Let's see, the water slide, the climbing wall, the bungee bridge, the indoor ski slope, the holographic city sim, all the conventional arcade and TV games, the complimentary luxury suite on the top floor, with skeet shooting, can't forget that, the free change of clothes, and the unlimited casino cash cards. So basically, all of the actual fun stuff about the Lotus Casino in the book, which combined with the fact that they defeated the mystery aspect, means this episode misses out on everything that made the Lotus Casino chapter interesting in the book!
Guys, I gotta say, so far, this quest is really exciting. Really hoping we find that car.
Grover seems to still be affected by the Lotus even after leaving the actual casino area. In the book, the spell wore off pretty much as soon as they were out.
Although I hope that game you were playing was amazing.
I was hunting for Pan.
No, you weren't. Not in the book, anyway. Again, you were hunting humans.
Hermes drives a cab?
The cab the trio took from the Lotus Casino to Santa Monica did not belong to Hermes, nor was it in any way magical. It was a regular mortal cab, which they paid for using the casino cash cards I mentioned earlier.
So, one of us just has to drive it out of the garage. Yeah, sure, I mean, I killed the Minotaur in my first try, right? How hard could this be?
As funny as this sequence is, Percy never drives a car in the books until he's old enough to learn.
Little weird that I forgot a lot more stuff than you guys did. Wonder what that's about.
We weren't alone. It's easy to forget what's important when you're alone.
This was not a thing in the book. The trio forgot about their quest before they split up. Weirdly, this is kind of reminiscent of how Annabeth describes surviving Tartarus with Percy later on in the timeline.
I think I gotta go meet my dad now.
We'll be here when you get back.
In the book, Percy doesn't tell anyone what he's doing when he walks into the surf. It's actually kind of funny seeing Annabeth freak out as he just disappears into the waves. In the book, Percy actually rode a Mako shark out to the meeting place. I guess they just didn't think that would be worth the extra budget. Well, this is quite a fun design for a Nereid. Unfortunately, it's not book accurate. The Nereid Percy meets is described as looking basically like a normal human, with black hair and a green dress. In fact, Percy confuses her for his mother when he first sees her in the river.
Sorry. He waited as long as he could. The summer solstice passed earlier this evening. Zeus's deadline has elapsed.
Fucking what?! This never happened in the book. The trio certainly cut it close, to the point of having to take a plane to get to New York in time, but they absolutely did not miss the summer solstice deadline. If they hadn't, there wouldn't have been a city for them to come back to. And don't give me that they needed time to prepare bullshit. These two have had 6 fucking months to prepare for this moment. Do you honestly expect me to believe that Zeus has been playing tiddlywinks while his symbol of power is missing?
What belongs to the sea can always return. Each will provide one of you safe passage back from the underworld.
There are 4 of them.
In the book, the Nereid only gave Percy 3 pearls. This is really important because it prevents Percy from saving his mother without leaving one of his friends behind. I've seen some argue that this is the show fixing an error in the book, that it doesn't make sense for Poseidon to not give Percy a 4th pearl, but I think it makes total sense if you read the book closely. When Percy tells Annabeth about the pearls, her response is, no gift comes without a price, and that price ends up being to leave someone behind. This is not something that needed fixing, and now the show is gonna need to bullshit a way out of this corner they've written themselves into. Yeah, in case you couldn't tell, I don't like this episode. It takes everything that was great about the Lotus Casino sequence from the book and sucks it right out and replaces it with half-assed character drama and major spoilers for the finale. And on top of that, the Santa Monica scene ends up robbing the story of any stakes going forward. The fact that the deadline has passed and nothing of value has been lost makes it hard to take the war as a serious threat, and the fourth pearl just cheapens the sacrifice Percy has to make later on. We Take a Zebra to Vegas was my favorite chapter of The Lightning Thief, which makes it sting even harder that I have to call this the worst episode of Season 1. The only positive thought I can think to end on is that it can't possibly get worse than this. Right? I don't see any sign of the delinquent kids that chased Percy into Krusty's shop in the book.
Welcome, weary traveler. Come on in and take a load off. These beds will change your life.
I know who you are. You're Procrustes. The beds are a trap. You're Procrustes, son of Poseidon and murderer of travelers.
You've got Dad's eyes.
Weirdly, the book doesn't really acknowledge the fact that Percy and Krusty are half-brothers. You'd think it would've, especially considering that they acknowledge Antaeus' connection to Poseidon when he shows up. So I guess that does make this a meaningful addition.
I know there's a secret passage to the underworld here. I know you were left here to guard it.
This was not a thing in the book. Krusty was just a monster who had reformed out of Tartarus and set up shop in LA. The entrance to the underworld was in DOA recording studios, and was guarded by Charon. Hey, wait a minute, that guy is Charon! That's the same actor who played Charon in the Lightning Thief movie. How did he get in here?
Fitting's not easy for guys like us, am I right? Our parents make it so hard. Stretching us and twisting us and hacking off pieces to make us seem more like them. With these beds, you just fit.
This whole metaphor is entirely made up for the show. In the book, Krusty was just a sadistic monster who used his beds to torture and kill people.
You first.
This is not how Percy defeated Krusty in the book. In fact, Annabeth had already been pushed into a Safari Deluxe bed by that point. Percy got Krusty into the bed by tricking him into demonstrating the wave reduction with his own weight. Also, the beds did not wrap people in the sheets like a burrito, nor did they activate automatically. Krusty, or anyone for that matter, would say a trigger word, ergo, and ropes would come out from the sides and tie the person down. Don't quite see how this is supposed to stretch anyone, which is kind of a problem since Procrustes literally means stretcher. Not that kind of... you know what I mean.
You're lucky we're letting you keep your head, dummy.
Why? So he can kill the next group of travelers in this part of the city? Come on, he wouldn't have spared thee. Percy did not let Krusty keep his head in the book. It was actually kind of funny seeing Krusty try to haggle his way out of getting killed.
It's either the realm of the dead or someone left a carton of milk in there in the 1990s.
Okay, I know this seems like a trivial detail now, but I swear it's important for me to mention that this stress ball was not in the book. The narrative purpose it serves later on was filled by a ball that Annabeth stole from Waterland.
If we get into trouble, these are our tickets out. I just think it's safer if I'm not holding them all.
Percy actually held on to all 3 pearls right up until the time came to use them. This change seems to have been made to set up the bullshit I mentioned them needing to pull to make the sacrifice work. This episode features a subplot made up of flashbacks to Percy being sent to a new school. These are entirely made up for the show and have no basis in the book.
I'm not going.
We discussed this.
I'm not going.
Percy! This is not a negotiation.
In the book, Percy describes Sally as being incredibly patient, never complaining or getting mad even when he was difficult with her. The show seems to have decided that this is unrealistic, and thus we have moments like this. This is pretty much exactly how the underworld is described as looking in the books. Maybe it could have done with a slight green tinge, but otherwise, this is perfect. In the book, the trio met Charon in his human form back at DOA Records. He has quite the penchant for Italian suits.
You're not dead.
We're all dying. To some extent.
Okay, I guess we're not bothering with the drowned in a bathtub together story, are we?
And you didn't pay the cross.
Wait, we can pay, we can pay. Here, drop us. Just take, take them all.
In the book, Charon actually took the bribe, along with the promise that Percy would talk to Hades about raising his salary. The trio's encounter with Cerberus in the book was far less of an action sequence than it is here. It was mostly just a standoff where they tried to distract him so they could get through. Grover never got swallowed by Cerberus in the book. This is part of the bullshit. This is not how Annabeth distracted Cerberus. She bribed him into doing tricks using the red ball.
Can you fly us up there with your shoes?
The trio did not need to fly over the wall of Erebus. Once they managed to distract Cerberus, they just went through the front gate, which looked like a toll booth on the Jersey Turnpike.
Guys?
This is not how Annabeth got around Cerberus in the book. She distracted him by tossing the ball again before slipping past him. Also, I guess we're skipping over the part where they have to cross the river Styx. Krusty's little secret passage must have bypassed it.
Oh no. My pearl. I lost the pearl. I think it's in the dog.
There's the bullshit. Seriously, what was the point of that whole 4 pearls thing?
I'm very sorry, but some new information came to light that has forced us to reconsider your application.
What kind of information?
A drawing.
He drew a picture of a horse with wings.
Percy is never said to have been rejected from any schools, certainly never for a stupid reason like this.
We aren't equipped to offer the kind of psychological monitoring we believe your child will require here.
I have already withdrawn him from his former school. He has no place else to go.
Percy was never withdrawn from a school either. Every time was an involuntary expulsion.
After we get the bolt and stop this war, you guys are leaving. With my mom.
Percy was the only one of the trio to not volunteer to stay behind. He certainly would have made that sacrifice if he could have, but he knew that wasn't an option if he was going to save the world.
Are those roots?
Souls here are bound by regret.
This is not a thing in the books or in mythology. The souls of Asphodel are free to wander as much as they can around the fields. There just isn't much point because, well, there's nothing to do. Why is Cerberus still chasing them? He should have been placated after playing with his new friend.
We've got a problem here.
Why is Annabeth the only one getting rooted down here? Is the show saying that Percy doesn't regret not saving his mom? Or that Grover doesn't regret failing to save Thalia? Both of those are sinful as shit.
Go. I'll distract the dog and buy you guys some time. I'll be okay. I trust your dad.
Annabeth did not get separated from Percy and Grover at any point in the underworld. They all stuck together the entire time.
Grover, where are you going? I don't know.
In the book, the shoes came to life back in Asphodel. Annabeth and Percy had to chase Grover halfway across the underworld. This is not how they stopped Grover from flying into Tartarus in the book. Grover just grabbed onto one of these rocks. In the book, one of the shoes flew around and kicked the kids in the heads before flying into Tartarus. I'll admit, it's a pretty absurd moment even for these books, but it's one of the few jokes from the book that would have actually translated well to the screen, so I feel it's at least worth mentioning.
What was that?
While Percy did notice the extra weight in his bag when he arrived at Tartarus, he thought he was just getting tired from all the running and ignored it. It wasn't until he arrived at Hades' palace that he realized he'd brought the bolt straight to him. Even if it does make more sense for him to be confused by the weight now, knowing that Ares had the bolt and not Hades, yet again, weakens the reveal that Hades had no involvement in the theft. I really like this design for the Master Bolt. It follows the basic description from the book, a bronze javelin, and then builds on that to make a weapon truly fit for Zeus.
Let's go get your mom.
The show completely skips over the part where the Crooked One casts a spell to try and suck the kids into Tartarus after the shoes fail. I suppose that could be considered redundant, but I think it would have been nice to see that he had a backup plan.
Why are you trying so hard to get rid of me?
I'm gonna go pay.
Hey, do you know how Sally reacts to being asked this question in the book? She immediately starts reassuring Percy that she wants him around, but that she has to send him away for his own safety. She does not get up and walk away with no explanation. This is not what Hades' palace looks like. It's basically a darker version of the palace on Olympus, with big bronze gates engraved with scenes of death from across history, and a courtyard containing Persephone's garden. Also, we see a couple of knights guarding the front gate here, but the book mentions soldiers from all across history serving as Hades' guards, including ancient Greece, the British Empire, and the United States Armed Forces. I know this is going to shock you, but there were no elevators in Hades' palace. It's a little hard to tell from this far away, but thankfully we have official artwork of these thrones, which shows that they do match their description from the book fairly nicely, with some additional artistic flair. Nice bit of attention to detail.
Hey fellas, welcome. Sorry about all the... Anyways, it's great to meet you. I know who you are and you know who I am, so we can just skip right past that part.
This is Hades? I'll give them this, they managed to not turn him into Satan. But they seem to have overcorrected some, because while Hades is honorable and just, he is still supposed to be an imposing and powerful figure. As I said when talking about the movie, Hades was the first god Percy met that actually felt like a god to him. Even if you want to argue mythical accuracy, this is still Hades facing someone whom he believes has stolen his symbol of power. And do you want to know how the mythical Hades treats those he considers thieves? I'd say ask Pirithous, but you can't, cause his ass is still stuck to a rock. Sally did not appear as a golden statue in Hades' throne room. She was just as she had been in the Minotaur's hand, wreathed in golden fire.
You give me what you got, and I give you what I got.
And what's the alternative? In the book, the alternative was that you would kill Sally and unleash the dead upon the earth. But I have a feeling that that isn't this Hades' style.
The bolt is my brother's drama. I don't want any part of it.
While Hades didn't have any interest in taking the bolt for himself or using it against his brothers, he was willing to use it as a bargaining chip once it found its way into his domain.
Then what do you want?
My helm! My helm of darkness, it went missing just days before someone used it to turn invisible and steal the bolt.
What now? The Helm of Darkness was stolen on the same day as the Master Bolt, at the Winter Solstice Conference. How would the thief have even gotten it that early? Hades keeps it with him in the underworld most of the time.
I don't really do jealous. My brothers, on the other hand, have the market cornered on jealous. These grudges, they go on forever. Super unhealthy.
That's rich coming from you, Hades. In the book, Hades absolutely was jealous of his brothers and held on to grudges for an insanely long time. It's why Thalia was attacked by the Furies, and it's indirectly why Luke's mother ended up the way she did. Hades wasn't evil, but he was bitter as f***.
It must have been somebody who was...
Kronos.
Oh, son of a m***ing lorem ipsum admitum veniam Treguna the hippopotamus, the Republican, and Logan Lerman with a bucket of in a castle far away where no one can hear you soup with a bucket of Mickey Mouse and a stick of dynamite. Magical Alakazam! Why does the show keep undermining every single plot twist from the book? The fact that Kronos was responsible for the theft wasn't revealed until the bolt had been returned to Zeus. You do know that people like surprises in stories, right? Or do you think people only read the book because it has kids in it?
I thought you didn't want the bolt.
I don't want the bolt. Now I need the bolt. If war with Kronos is coming, I'd like to be prepared.
Hades actually had no interest in fighting the war with Kronos, at least at first. Him overcoming his resentment of the other gods and learning to stand up for the greater good is kind of his entire arc in The Last Olympian.
Forward now!
In the book, the pearls are described as carrying the kids away in milky white bubbles, not opening portals beneath their feet.
Isn't fair.
No.
Sally had no contact with Poseidon during Percy's childhood. This conversation could not have happened.
A winged horse followed him to school.
The show seems to be avoiding using the term Pegasus for some reason. Yes, in mythology, there was only ever one Pegasus, the son of Medusa, but in the Riordanverse, the race of winged horses that descend from him share his name. It's not like capital P Pegasus shows up often enough for there to be much confusion, so this is kind of a pointless change.
You don't want him again.
No.
Tell me why.
I want him to know who he is before your family tries to tell him who they want him to be.
This is not the reason Sally didn't want Percy going to camp in the book. She was just afraid that if she let him go, he wouldn't come back, and she'd lose the only good thing in her life. I personally find that way more human and relatable than this sanctimonious shit.
Then I think you have your answer. He's going to go to school.
Poseidon wanted Percy to go to Camp Half-Blood pretty much as soon as he was conceived. He told Sally as much before he left her.
One day when he's ready, when he knows who he is.
It's made clearer in the next episode, but you can see in this final scene that the Pearls have taken the trio to the beach at Montauk. In the book, the Pearls took them back to Santa Monica Bay, where they had to be pulled out of the water by the Coast Guard before confronting Ares. This results in the trio having to fly back to New York after the battle. Apparently this change was made because Montauk was a more convenient and important beach. Also, I see clouds in the sky here, but no storms, which is weird considering that Zeus should be pretty f***ing pissed right now. And yes, I know there's gonna be a radio announcer in the next episode talking about freak weather events, but we should be actually seeing that. Overall, the underworld parts of this episode weren't bad. I just have two major issues with it. Number one is the depiction of Hades. He's a fun character, I guess, but it's so different from his portrayal in the Percy Jackson books that I genuinely struggle to see how the plot can progress. Hades' bitterness and resentment towards the other gods is a major plot point in the later books, and I just don't see enough of that here to make that feel natural in any way. I also really didn't care for the detour through Asphodel. That just felt completely out of place and only served to artificially remove Annabeth from the story. I honestly don't even see what the point of that was. Were they afraid she would unravel the plot when they found the bolt in Percy's bag? You know that wouldn't be a problem if they just didn't find the bolt in Percy's bag before confronting Hades. As for the Sally flashbacks, I really did not care for them. I get the idea of trying to flesh out Sally's character, but I almost feel like they had the opposite effect and made her feel more generic. Sally's character isn't really explored in the first book, but it's clear there's a lot beneath the surface. She was orphaned at age 5 and raised by a neglectful uncle. Then when her uncle got sick, she dropped out of high school to take care of him, giving up her dream of becoming an author in the process. Then she had Percy, met Gabe, and you probably know the rest. I think it would have been way more interesting if they'd explored that compared to this basic melodrama. This is another middling episode for me. which is a shame considering that so many of these have ended up being that. Hopefully the finale ends things on a high note. In the book, sword training was done with real bronze swords, not wooden ones.
Luke, I appreciate you taking the time.
But you're weak and want to quit?
This scene seems to be implying that Luke is giving Percy private, informal lessons. In the book, Luke was actually the official sword-fighting instructor at Camp Half-Blood and taught Percy as part of a class.
When I say don't fight fair, it's not like there are rules.
Of course there are rules. See, that's what warfare is. Knowing the rules.
This exchange did not happen in the book. It seems to have been added here to provide some extra setup for the fight with Ares.
If I draw first blood, I keep the bolt and you surrender the helm.
There wasn't really a defined win condition for the fight with Ares. While it did stop after first blood, Ares would have kept going if Kronos hadn't intervened.
I mean, it's your funeral, kid. Although, just to be clear, no funeral. Any trace of you leaves a trace of my plan, and we can't have that.
This isn't quite what would have happened if Ares had won in the book. He would have gotten to turn Percy into an animal of his choosing. Though I suppose the two aren't mutually exclusive, I'm still calling it a change.
It was Kronos. What? Is that where he got to you too? Through your dreams?
Gods don't dream, little man.
How do you f*** up the "I never said it was poison" trope? In the book, Percy didn't say anything about dreams when confronting Ares, so when Ares denied having dreams, it only confirmed Percy's suspicion. It's one of the oldest tropes in the mystery genre. How do you f*** it up this badly? In the book, Percy started the fight in the surf, where he could use the water to move himself around more effectively. Of course, Ares quickly knocked him back onto dry land, leading to him taking the beating that we see here. Also, Ares was supposed to have set a massive bore on Percy before fighting him directly. Percy makes pretty short work of it though, so it makes sense why it was cut. This beach looks pretty deserted, but in the book this fight actually drew a small crowd of cops, satyrs, dead spirits, and the Furies.
Who warned you? If you're not careful, you'll find out who I am.
Percy did not deliver a one-liner before hitting Ares with the tidal wave.
Want to know what you really won today? Enemy for life.
In the book, Ares placed a curse upon Percy in revenge for beating him. What exactly that curse is changes from book to book. In The Lightning Thief, it's every time you raise your blade in battle, every time you hope for success, you will feel my curse. But in later books, it's when you need it most, your sword will fail you. I guess they couldn't settle on which version to use, so they just didn't bother at all. As I mentioned in the last video, the battle with Ares took place at Santa Monica, far from the cabin at Montauk. Percy's final confrontation with Alecto happened right on the beach.
Quite something, isn't it? Using earthquakes to clear the skies. Lord Poseidon grows bold in his war against his king.
Alecto was not in human form when Percy gave her the helm. She was in monster form, using her wings to watch the fight from above.
Good luck on Olympus. Perhaps there will still be a world left for your mother to return to.
Alecto's parting words to Percy were a bit more threatening in the book. Live well, Percy Jackson. Become a true hero. Because if you do not, if you ever come into my clutches again...
What does that mean, good luck on? Dude.
No.
I have to.
What for? The quest failed. We missed the deadline.
This is bigger than the quest.
Annabeth and Grover never tried to stop Percy from returning the bolt for any reason, let alone a bullshit reason like them missing the deadline.
Before we set off, Chiron told me the last war on Olympus kicked off World War II down here.
Again, why didn't we see this earlier? The book presented this information in chronological order, so the stakes of the quest were made clear from the start. Why would you hold crucial information like this back until it's just barely relevant?
Zeus will never let you leave Olympus alive.
I'm done running from monsters.
This line is from the book, but it's completely recontextualized here. In the book, after Ares sets the bore on him, Percy says, "But I was done running from monsters, or Hades, or Ares, or anybody." As I said back in episode 4, monster was just another word for a mythical creature in the books. The characters never really used the term like this.
You're gonna need all the luck you can get.
In the book, Annabeth gave Percy her necklace before his fight with Ares. She called it a symbol of reconciliation, children of Poseidon and Athena working together. Also, Grover gave Percy a flattened tin can at the same time, as a symbol of the satyrs standing behind him.
I'm here to see Zeus.
This scene is somewhat condensed from the book. The doorman actually denied Percy entrance twice, first because the 600th floor doesn't exist to mortals, and second because he doesn't have an appointment. Of course, that's when Percy shows him the bolt, and he quickly changes his tune. Also, the doorman is implied to be reading a certain other young adult fantasy novel. Also, in skipping over Percy's flight home, the show also skips over Percy being exonerated of all his alleged crimes. In the book, Ares ends up taking the fall for the bus explosion and the Gateway Arch attack, and Percy is able to fly home thanks to the generosity of the people of LA, and by offering everyone who pitched in a free appliance from Gabe's store.
But if we can break rules and they can't, shouldn't they be just as afraid of us as we are of them?
Annabeth is terrified of spiders. But she's a lot bigger than they are. So what do you think happens when she comes across one?
Two things. One, in the book, this is revealed when the mechanical spiders come out of the thrill ride of love, and we get to see how Annabeth reacts. We should have been shown this as a character moment, not told about it as part of a metaphor. And two, the metaphor doesn't exactly work, as Annabeth's fear of spiders tends to provoke a freezing response, not a fighting one. These thrones seem fairly uniform in design, while in the book, each one had a unique aesthetic. Also, just like the cabins, they should be arranged in a horseshoe shape, not a simple circle. Zeus is supposed to have long black and gray hair and a beard, resembling a storm cloud. Also, he's supposed to be in his 10-foot tall form here. Also, I don't see Poseidon anywhere in this scene, at least not right now. In the book, they were together for their final peace talk when Percy came with the bolt.
We tried to get it to you on time, but...
You failed. You may go.
But...
I know where Kronos is. I put him there.
You know what? Forget all that stuff about appearance. Lance Reddick owns this role and will be sorely missed.
I know who Kronos is. I am his son. Of course he's gathering strength. Of course he's coming. That is what we do. We snap and plot and strive. It was only a matter of time before he did again.
In the book, Zeus was actively in denial about Kronos rising. I guess him acting like it's not a big deal kind of fits that, but that seems like a reach.
Thank you for the news. It is the only reason I'm letting you leave alive.
In the book, Zeus letting Percy live is the reward he gets for returning the bolt. He didn't need to do anything else to win that right.
The war proceeds. It ends with victory. What did you think, that you and I would negotiate?
Yes! You called off the war the moment the bolt was returned in the book. Why does this show keep dissing its own source material?
Your family is a mess. They don't support you because they love you. They obey because they're afraid.
Percy did not give Zeus the reason you suck speech after returning the Master Bolt. He saved those for the later books. Zeus never attacked Percy with the Master Bolt. Once he got it back, he zapped away to clean it, and only ever used it in his battles with Typhon and the Giants.
I surrender.
Again, there was no war to surrender. What even is he surrendering? What does Zeus hope to gain from the war now that he has the bolt back?
I'll have Athena set a meeting, the whole council, and then discuss family business.
And again, Zeus was in denial about Kronos returning. He refused to entertain any discussion of it until the third book.
Make sure I never see this one again.
This was not one of Zeus's demands of Percy. He demanded that Percy leave Olympus before he gets back from cleaning the bolt, and to never fly again, but he never demanded to never see Percy again. Okay, so I guess they're not gonna explain where Zeus teleported off to. I have to assume he's going to wash the bolt in the waters of Lemnos, otherwise it just feels odd that he'd leave Olympus.
Patros. It means father, right?
Chiron has taught you well.
I didn't learn it from Chiron.
Percy never mentions learning ancient Greek from his mother, only from Chiron and Annabeth. You know Chiron's whole purpose is to be Percy's teacher, right? Why are we giving that role to someone else?
Can I ask you a question?
I don't know when Hades will return. He can be difficult when he wants to make a point.
Do you dream? Ares said gods don't dream.
This exchange did not happen. Probably because Percy already knows that gods dream because of the whole "who said anything about dreams" bit. Also, Percy's conversation with Poseidon wasn't quite this short and wholesome. While Poseidon is proud of Percy and does clearly care about him, there's an awkwardness between them as a result of them having had virtually no contact for Percy's entire life, and Poseidon outright says he regrets conceiving Percy due to the difficult life he has to lead as a hero.
You should be going.
We never see the magical pearls again after Percy returns from the underworld. Percy left Olympus the way he came, down the elevator. Percy did not go straight back to camp after leaving Olympus. He went to Gabe's apartment first to see his mother. We'll talk more about that scene later.
Clarice stole the Master Bolt.
It's complicated.
How is it complicated?
Everyone was ready to join the war here, to start fighting each other. An accusation against Clarice.
Without proof.
Exactly. Without proof, it would have lit this whole place on fire.
Oh, so the whole thing with Clarice really was just a cheap misdirect that had no bearing on the plot. That's a bit of wasted potential. I think it could have deepened Percy and Clarice's rivalry in the later seasons if she'd actually gotten in trouble for it. Sure, it would have been inaccurate, but it would have made the previous change more meaningful.
I told him we needed to meet him away from the celebration.
How is Percy supposed to meet up with Chiron away from the celebration? Percy kind of needs to be there for the victory ceremony. Are they gonna put a laurel crown on a straw dummy? Who's gonna burn Percy's burial shroud? Really? Ordinary starburst fireworks? In the book, the Hephaestus cabin could do full-blown sky animation using fireworks. That would have been awesome to see on screen, especially for a season finale. Imagine seeing an animated recap of all the trio's victories from previous episodes right before the final plot twist. Also, the fireworks were part of the 4th of July celebration, not the Hero's Return celebration. Oh, that reminds me. This confrontation between Luke and Percy happened at the end of the summer session, several weeks after Percy returns from his quest. This show really likes playing the events out of order, doesn't it?
But prophecies? Those things are so vague.
The quest is over, and everything the Oracle said has either come true or makes sense.
Has it?
And you shall be betrayed by one who calls you a friend. You worked with Ares to plan it on me. So when the shoes you gave me pulled me down into Tartarus, the bolt would be delivered right to Kronos.
I didn't think you'd give him to Grover to wear.
Okay, to sin or not to sin is the question. On the one hand, Luke's reaction to Grover nearly getting pulled into Tartarus was far more callous in the book, so this is a change. On the other hand, him caring like this is arguably more consistent with his characterization in the later books, where he does genuinely try to spare Annabeth and Thalia from the Titan's wrath. You know what? I'll let the show have this one. The gods know it needs everything it can get.
I am your friend. Percy, none of this was meant to betray you. The gods are my enemy. You. I'm here to recruit.
Luke did not try to recruit Percy to the Titan army at the end of The Lightning Thief. He did make offers later in the series, but at this point he totally wanted Percy dead. This actually creates a major plot hole, because if he didn't want Percy dead, why would he try to get him dragged into Tartarus? That would have been a death sentence this early on.
This is our way out.
Way out of what?
Camp. Their control. Backbiter can open secret doors. We can stay on the run as long as it takes.
Okay, this is gonna be a fun one. Despite what some may say, this actually does have a basis in the book. I will now read to you said basis directly from the book. He slashed his sword in an arc and disappeared in a ripple of darkness. That's it. That's the entire basis for what we're seeing here. One line where it's not even clear what's happening. Is Backbiter creating a portal? Is Luke using some rare power he got from Hermes? Is he channeling Kronos' power? It's hard to say since it never happens again for the rest of the series. Regardless, what we're seeing here is very different from what's described in the book.
I met your dad.
Percy and Luke never actually fought in The Lightning Thief. Percy tried to goad Luke into fighting, the way he did with Ares, but Luke was too smart to take him up on it. Instead, he just summoned a pit scorpion to kill Percy, monologued for a bit, and then left.
Annabeth?
I heard everything.
Annabeth was not there for the final confrontation between Luke and Percy. She only learned about Luke's betrayal from Percy's account. This is kind of important, as she spends the rest of the series in denial that he's actually turned evil, which drives a wedge between her and Percy.
None of this is easy. Saying goodbye.
In the book, Percy's final conversation with Chiron took place back at the infirmary, as Percy had been stung by the pit scorpion and nearly died. Annabeth was there too, once again serving as his nurse.
I may not be gone long. I just need to see if Hades has returned her yet.
The show seems to be suggesting that Percy waited until the end of the summer to go check on his mother. In the book, that was the first thing he did after leaving Olympus. Again, sequence of events. Also, by the time Percy had made up his mind about going home, he was dead set on staying through the school year. It's literally the last line of dialogue from the book. I'll be back next summer, I'll survive until then. After all, I am Poseidon's son.
And you're certain that you won't accept an armed escort?
Chiron definitely didn't want Percy leaving camp with Luke and the Titan army still at large, but he at least tried not to let Percy know that before he made his decision.
You have to be very careful. You're more than a hero now. You are a leader in the eyes of your fellow half-bloods.
No, he isn't. Not yet, anyway. When Percy comes back to camp in the Sea of Monsters, the other half-bloods don't treat him like a leader at all. If anything, they rally around Clarice.
No, thank you, Percy.
Like, Percy? That's your name?
Yes.
Are you sure? Because I'm 90% sure it's Peter.
Percy.
Mr. D never doubled down on an incorrect name like this. He mostly just ignored any attempt to correct him.
How does she feel about all of this? You going home to see your dad?
Annabeth going to stay with her father for the school year was actually a surprise to Percy in the book.
Guys!
Grover was supposed to have left for his search back in July. His big goodbye happened during the 4th of July party.
You got it?
Where is it? Oh, is that your searcher's license?
Why are they acting like he only just got the searcher's license? Shouldn't he have gotten it right after completing the quest? Seriously, why does this feel like a complete afterthought?
Well, it seems like every inch of the natural world's been checked, noted, and footnoted. But no one's ever bothered to check the seas.
Grover actually couldn't tell Percy and Annabeth where he would be looking for Pan in the book. It was a secret. This change seems to have been made to set up for Season 2. Also, the sea had been checked for Pam by this point in the books. The same thing that lured Grover out to the Sea of Monsters had already lured several satyrs to their death. Grover was just the first one to live to tell the tale. Percy did not reunite with Sally at the cabin in Montauk. He reunited with her back at their apartment, where they had that final confrontation with Gabe.
It's time to wake up.
Are you serious? We're still doing this?
Percy has a point. This final nightmare sequence wasn't in the book at all. The book ended with Percy getting ready to leave camp.
No kidding, kiddo. Time to wake up. Breakfast awaits. 7th grade awaits. Let's get this party started.
Percy's first day of 7th grade is never shown at any point in the books. They skip straight from the end of his first summer at camp to the start of his second.
The stories you heard about Greek gods, heroes, and monsters. I'm here to tell you they're real. If you ever feel like you don't fit, like the world doesn't make sense, then you might be a part of our world. So don't give up, because we might need you for the fight ahead.
This final narration is completely made up for the show. It doesn't even make sense. Whatever happened to...
Turn away while you still can.
My wife is divorcing me, and on top of that, I gotta pay you too? How is that fair, buddy? Oh, you gotta be kidding me. She changed the locks. Hello?
Return to sender. To Percy Jackson from the gods. Oh, that is gross.
Okay, let's finally talk about the whole Gabe thing. In the book, in the scene where Percy returns to the apartment to reunite with Sally after Hades releases her, we see Gabe at his absolute worst. He grumbles about having to return Sally's life insurance money, threatens to call the cops on Percy for destroying his car, and nearly slaps Sally when she tries to stop him. This is what prompts Percy to suggest using Medusa's head to kill him, which in the book was a very deliberate act on Sally's part. Apparently, this was all changed because the idea of showing Gabe's abusive behavior on TV was too real compared to describing it in prose. But personally, I say that if you don't want to depict domestic abuse, you shouldn't be trying to adapt Percy Jackson. Pretty much every major character in the series has experienced it in some form or another, and the books don't shy away from it. That's one of the things that makes the books so great, in my opinion, that they're willing to be that real about it. The fact that the show isn't is a pretty big problem. Not to mention that between this and the whole smell thing going completely unaddressed, Gabe contributes absolutely nothing of substance to the story. And I think that's pretty much all there is to say about this episode. There aren't any grand overarching issues I had with it, or any deeper analysis I could give to any parts that I didn't already cover. Most of the changes in this one were either knock-on effects of previous changes, or ultimately minor in the grand scheme of things. So all told, this is probably the best finale I could have hoped for. I won't say it's as good as episodes 4 or 5, but I liked it more than episodes 1 and 2. As for my thoughts on the series as a whole, I just have one question. Why? Why is it so different? So many changes were made that, in my opinion, aren't necessary for the new medium and only make the story worse. The fact that the kids recognize every single hazard before it happens kills any sense of tension. Certain details are left out that create glaring plot holes, and so many things from future books that should have been set up in this season were either set up wrong or just not at all. Even putting the plot aside, the show just doesn't capture the tone of Percy Jackson. While the show has moments of book-style comic relief, everything is played so dramatically that I don't get the same level of goofy fun out of the show that I do the books. It feels like it's trying to be a kid-friendly Game of Thrones, which just isn't what Percy Jackson is supposed to be. I think the most disappointing part is the characters. The main trio are amazing actors, and have great synergy if you watch the behind-the-scenes footage. But the material they've been given just isn't right for the characters at all. Percy is way too angsty, and his dialogue is way too straightforward with none of his trademark wit and sass. Which is fucking bizarre because Walker Scobell has basically played Percy Jackson already. Seriously, when this video is over, go watch The Adam Project. Walker's character in that movie is everything Percy should have been. As for Annabeth, she was played way too stoically, with very little personality coming through, book accurate or otherwise. Which especially sucks considering that Leah Savay Jeffries had the most to prove, at least to some people. I've said it before, she's a genuinely good actress. The scene with Hephaestus in episode 5 alone proves that, and judging by the clips I've seen of Empire and Beast, she delivers good performances there too, so it's just sad that she wasn't given better material to work with. I think Grover had the best performance of the three. Aryan Simhadri perfectly captures that neurotic energy he had in the book. I genuinely have no criticisms toward his acting. So naturally, his entire story arc got completely shafted, with only token mentions that don't give a clear enough impression of what's going on. Rick Riordan himself said in one of his emails to the producers of the Lightning Thief movie that Grover needs to have a character arc for the story to work, yet he doesn't have much of one here. The crew of the show have consistently said that it was made with fans of the book in mind, and would follow the books faithfully with only minor changes. Then after the first 3 episodes aired, an interview was released acknowledging that many changes were made to the story not only to suit the medium of television, but also because Rick Riordan saw the show as a second draft. As a content creator myself, I definitely relate to that. I look back at the videos and stories I made 5 years ago and cringe. I can't imagine how much worse it'll be in another 15. But at the same time, I think Riordan got so caught up in making this second draft that he kind of let the whole faithful adaptation idea slip. Because as a fan of the books, I'm not satisfied, and I know I'm not the only one. So what's the takeaway here? Well, for anyone who may have been put off from reading the books because you didn't care for the show, please give them a chance. You'll probably like them a lot more than you realize. And for those of you who do like the show, that's great, more power to you. But if you didn't understand why some of us disliked it so much, hopefully you have a better idea now. Or at the very least, we can acknowledge that it's very different from the book, regardless of how well you think it pulls it off. As of me writing this, Season 2 is already in post-production, so even if by some miracle someone involved with the production sees this, it's too late for any of it to matter now. The good news is that the production team are aware of the criticisms, and have said they plan to make some improvements to the show going forward. But at the same time, they've only doubled down on their philosophy of changing the story, so whatever comes next, I'm certainly not going to run out of material anytime soon. Lightning Round! One bonus sin for everything the movie got right that the show did not. While Grover doesn't use crutches in the book, the fact that he uses them in the movie is in keeping with him disguising his weird legs as a muscular disability, something the show doesn't acknowledge at all. Mrs. Dodds attacks Percy in an isolated section of the museum, complete with a brief moment of off-screen teleportation. Pretty much everything about Smelly Gabe. Joe Pantoliano does a great job in this role. I honestly regret not taking any sins off for his portrayal.
Whoa, whoa! You're half donkey? I'm half goat.
The movie alludes to the fact that some demigods have held positions of great fame and power in the mortal world, a detail from the books that goes completely unmentioned in the show. The movie actually explains why demigods would have dyslexia and ADHD, and the explanation is straight out of the book. The power of Gabe's smell is mentioned, explaining why Sally stays with him in the first place. The summer solstice deadline is said to be 10 days from when Percy leaves. The potential war between the gods is described in far more detail. Chiron explicitly warns
Olympians would be forced to choose sides. Earth would become a battleground. Mountains erupted, earthquakes, raging fires. The end of life as you know it.
Percy's skirmish and capture the flag happens by a creek. Athena's feud with Poseidon is acknowledged. Grover initially mistakes Uncle Ferdinand for an ordinary statue. Medusa's characterization is pretty close to the book. Vengeful towards Athena, wistful for Poseidon, and taking out those feelings on their respective children. The trio fight Medusa in her garden. Percy uses a reflective object to see Medusa during their fight. Grover eats soda cans. The Lotus Casino sequence is structured very closely to the book. Grover's occasional tendency to bleat like a goat. The characters actually experience massive storms as the deadline grows closer. The trio successfully bribe Charon into taking them across the River Styx. Hellhounds exist. There are only 3 pearls. Percy returns the bolt to Zeus on time. The gods appear as gigantic humans on Olympus. Oh, things couldn't be worse when your parents run the universe. Oh, things couldn't be worse when your folks run the